Good evening. Welcome to the June 2015 Methacton School Board meeting. Please rise for the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. I thank everyone for coming out in the questionable weather. By way of announcements, the public is hereby advised of the audio and video recording of this meeting for purposes of rebroadcasting. Also want to announce there was an executive session held June 25th, 2015, this evening, immediately prior to this meeting, for matters of pending litigation and for matters of personnel. By way of attendance, all board members are present, including Mr. Phillips, who is on the phone. And I'll move on to recognition of guests and scheduled speakers. Dr. Zerbe.
Thank you, Mr. President. This evening on item 5.1, we have a school board proclamation, and I ask President Nascimento to please read the proclamation for us.
With pleasure. Proclamation of the Methacton School District Board of School Directors. Whereas many Methacton School District students individually and collectively perform distinguished service to their school and/or community in many ways, and whereas the reputation and image of the Methacton School District is built and enhanced by the performance of its faculty and students, and whereas the accomplishments of individual students in academic, artistic, athletic, leadership, literary, and musical endeavors bring positive community interest in school programs. And whereas the future of any community rests in the hands of its responsible youth, and whereas Jack H. Hills has brought considerable recognition to his school and community by earning the highest possible composite score of 36 on the ACT test, a rare and significant accomplishment. Now therefore be it resolved that the members of the Methacton School District Board of School Directors go on record on this 25th day of June 2015 honoring the spirit of this exemplary performance. And it's signed by myself in honor for all the school directors. And Jack, congratulations. Jack, what's next? What are your plans next?
Look at colleges and stuff.
I think colleges are looking at you.
I think it'll be okay. Congratulations. Well done.
Jack, I think the colleges will be looking for you. Congratulations and thank you for making the Methacton community proud. The next item on the agenda, item 5.2, coach recognition. Mr. Spiewak.
Thank you very much. I'm Paul Spiewak, the athletic director at Methacton High School, and tonight, both on a personal and professional level, on behalf of the athletic office, we want to recognize and thank Coach Rob Ronzano for his 18 years of tremendous service to the girls and boys track and field programs. They've been as successful as any program over his tenure, and above that, as you can see from the number of athletes that are here tonight, and the number of parents and athletes that have contacted me, even through my short 5 years as athletic director, that he goes above and beyond. You see him out in the summer and in the fall, and then all through the official winter and spring season. And he has been a lot more than just a coach of skill development for these boys and girls. And he's been an outstanding person and coach. So first off, from the athletic office, we want to thank Rob Ronzano for all that he has done for the Methacton School District and making us proud through state championships and league titles, which you're going to hear about here in a second. So congratulations from the athletic office, Rob. And as Coach Ronzano makes his way down here to the podium, Wendy Serator and the Booster Club coaching staff members and also athletes are going to make their way down to present on behalf of the Booster Club. They're going to present a plaque to Coach Ronzano to commemorate his 18 years as head coach.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
think they want you to stand over there.
I have to,
Yeah, there you go.
Murderer's Row over here.
We're not all going to talk. I'm just her muscle. So pay attention.
This could be a while.
Yeah. All right, Wendy?
Hey, I heard that for you. Okay, thank you. It is with deep sadness for the booster members and, more importantly, the athletes of the girls' track team to say goodbye to Coach Ronzano as the head track coach. Coach Ronzano has been an integral part of the Methacton track and field for 18 years. He has put countless hours, weeks, months, and years into the program and has come away with many accomplishments for the team and Methacton High School. He has not only been a coach to each one of the girls throughout his coaching career, but he has been a true mentor to each one of them. The spring track team usually rosters 50-plus girls every year. Even though Coach Ronzano has assistant coaches, he has managed to divide himself amongst all the athletes on the team, getting to know each one of them, and has instilled his coaching expertise to help each girl improve their times, distances, and jumps and throws, and endurance to master the skills in every event. I can personally speak for my daughter in saying that he has coached her to maximize her abilities in over 8 track and field events, and more importantly, instilled a love for the sport and team that she will never forget. I have witnessed the passion he has for the sport and the improvements in just about every member on the team, and see that these girls are part of a true track family. It is for this and so many other reasons that the girls and the booster members want to recognize Coach Ronzano on behalf of the girls track team. I would like to present Coach Ronzano with a plaque that will honor all of Coach Ronzano's accomplishments. He has led the team to 3 Suburban 1 titles, 7 Pac-10 championship titles, 87 undefeated league track meets, and has also captured 2 district titles and 1 state championship title. And he has produced many Pac-10 state and district champions and medalists. Coach Ronzano will be missed in so many ways and deserves this recognition for all of his dedication and accomplishments throughout his career as the girls' girls' head track team. Coach, thank you very much. Sorry.
Thank you.
Go ahead. I'm supposed to say something.
Especially to your assistant coaches.
Yeah, right. I don't want to say a lot. I spoke actually at the last meeting, kind of knowing that this was it. I want to thank not only the girls in back of me, but the ones that have been there forever. Thank you, school board, for giving me this opportunity, and to the assistant coaches, to Paul Spiewak. It's been a great 18 years. I love these kids. They're great. Thank you. Thank you.
The receiving line.
Yeah, we'll give him a minute.
After you thank them, walk. You have a meeting to go to.
Dr. Zerber, any other speakers? Or?
Yes, we would like to add an item 5.3. I would ask Mr. Whiteleather to prepare to present the budget for the 15-16 school year. I'd ask the members of the board to please take their seats in the front row, and that we bring the screen down and prepare for that presentation. Thank you.
Okay, good evening, everyone. I wanted to take a few minutes this evening and go over what is our hopefully soon-to-be final budget for the 2015-16 fiscal year. This budget process leading up to this evening has reflected on months dating back to September 2014 to present over a number of finance committee meetings, school board meetings to hone in on what is tonight our final product. So where we're going to start is just to update board and community as far as changes that have occurred since May 26, which is when the board approved the proposed final operational budget. Leading off at the top, we were successful in negotiating with several brokers on our insurance coverages, in particular our workers' compensation premium, which is by far our largest single line of insurance cost for the district outside of our health insurance, of course. You can see the decrease is reflected of $83,479. And as I've indicated, that's a direct result of us competitively putting out on the street our request for proposals for our insurance coverages. In addition, as you move to the middle section, our revenues, our taxable assessments, each month the county provides us with an update as to how many what is the total value of all the taxable properties in our school district. Based upon an uptick in that category, it's resulted in a little over $43,000 of additional real estate tax revenue to the district. Secondly, our IDEA allocation. IDEA is a federal funding source filtered through our local intermediate unit. We received our final allocation based upon the final update from the IU of a decrease of $8,200, $8,204 to be exact. So the net increase in revenues reflected at $35,544 in conjunction with an expenditure decrease of $83,000 has resulted in an overall budgetary savings from May 26th of $119,023. What does that result in? Our use of budget surplus as proposed on May 26th of $977,000 has been decreased to $858,000 as reflected at the bottom of this slide. Our revenues by major function. First, our function 6,000, and the way this is broken out is all these functions are state mandated relative to breaking out our local revenues, state revenues, federal revenues, etc. As you can see, our local revenues are by far our largest single line of revenue for the school district at over $78 million. Real estate taxes comprise the vast majority of that. Our second line of revenues to the school district is state revenues at a little over $20 million. That represents, most importantly, our basic ed subsidy and our special ed subsidy, as well as reimbursements back for pension and FICA payments on behalf of our employees. Federal revenues represent our title grants, Title I and Title II grants. As you can see, it's a relatively small part of our budget at a little over $492,000. Rounding out function 9,000. Other financing sources, this is made up of lease reimbursement we utilize every year for technology, which accounts for $1 million of that overall dollar amount there. And then lastly, as reflected on the previous slide, the use of fund balance as reflected and updated with our decrease to $858,000. So you can see our total revenues of a little over $101 million proposed for next year. Expenditures by object, again, the expenditures are broken down into categories as required by the Department of Education here in Pennsylvania. Obviously, salaries comprise our largest single line of expense at a little over $42 million. Benefits are our second most expensive area, which comprise your fringe benefits for your staff members, as well as pension, health care, tuition reimbursement, things of that sort. Professional services, any type of consultants that you would have throughout the district would comprise of the Object 300. Property services are comprised of utilities throughout the district, as well as repairs and maintenance on our facilities. 500 Other purchase services, the largest portion of that is applicable to our transportation services provided by First Student, as well as fuel under that category. Supplies and books, pretty self-explanatory, most particularly aligned with the classroom instructional needs. Equipment, also pretty self-explanatory throughout the organization, as new as well as replacement equipment. And then rounding out the two last categories is majority of our accounted for those two areas is our debt interest and debt principal. Those are general obligation bonds that we have out on behalf of the school district for renovating or updating our facilities. So our total expenditures match our total revenues at a little over $101 million. So our budget projection update, as it stands for the current year, as of May 31, 2015, our expenditures were slightly over $84 million, which compared to the same period of time last year and last fiscal year budget of 13-14 was an increase of 1.83%. Our revenues at a little over $93 million represented a 4.45% increase over the prior year, same period of time. Moving to the middle section, we're providing a snapshot as of mid-June 2015. Right now, we're at 97.9% of budgeted for revenues and 93% of our expenditures. Based upon all of the information that we would have as of the end of May, as well as utilizing a snapshot as of June, we're projecting a surplus of about $2 to $2.3 million. As indicated previously during Finance Committee as well as a board, we had some one-time revenue items inclusive of our bus sale, as well as some RX prescription settlements and a rebate or refund back from our insurance provider. We also received just recently a special ed exceptional cost reimbursement from the state, as well as receiving stop-loss reimbursement. And stop-loss reimbursement is applicable to employees whose health care costs go over a certain threshold. We have an insurance policy that would reimburse us for those exceptional costs. So those are inclusive in that projection as it looks. If we were to exclude those one-time items and purely look at a projected operational surplus, we're looking at about $300,000. Down at the bottom is just basically, obviously surpluses are calculations based upon our best estimate of where we will land. And obviously projections are subject to change based upon unknown potential expenditures and revenues that can occur. So where are we at as of the 15-16 budget in a snapshot? Revenues at a little over 101 million, expenditures the same amount. The real estate tax increase is shared during our meeting on May 26th is a $0 increase and a 0% increase in the millage rate, which is currently at 27.90. And then lastly, what put together is just based upon the median assessment for residential properties here in Methacton School District. You can just see how the calculation would apply based on an average tax bill for the Methacton community. And that concludes my presentation.
Thank you.
Thank you, Stuart.
You're welcome. You're welcome.
So we'll be voting on the budget during the finance fiscal items number 9. But since we just saw the presentation in the meantime, is there any questions from the board for Mr. Whiteleather? Comments? Been pretty well through that. Okay. If not, moving on. Dr. Zerby, anything else?
That ends the presentations and guest speakers for this evening.
Okay. Then I will move into item number 6, reports. Start with our Finance Committee. Mr. Pellicano.
Thanks, Mr. President. Finance Committee met on this past Tuesday, on the 23rd, at Arcola. All the members of the Finance Committee were present, as well as some of the other board members who happened to be in attendance. We went through our standard monthly reports, as we always do. Mr. Whiteleather took us through them. There was a fair amount of questions that came out of the different reports. We also looked at the budget transfers, which is a required item that we go through on an annual basis. Mr. Whiteleather provided us with a summary of that information. There was also, Dr. Zerbe also introduced the administrative reorganization as well, which I think will be talked about a little later tonight, really just from the perspective that there's no impact at all to the 15-16 budget with respect to that administrative reorganization. Mr. Whiteleather also talked a little bit about the homestead, farmstead rebates and resolution that came along with that. There were some questions about the differences between a homestead and farmstead rebate, and Mr. Whiteleather clarified all those issues. There was also a review of the district insurances and the renewals, and he took us through that. There's been a process by shopping these things around that, we really got to a pretty good point overall. I think our overall net increase for the year was pretty minimal from a percentage-wise, which was very much a positive thing overall. And then on the proposed budget, which everybody just heard about, again, Mr. Whiteleather took us through that as well, with the projected surplus of about $2 million to $2.3 million, and then the use of some of that surplus for the 15-16 budget year, the $858, which he also mentioned. Some questions from the audience on a variety of different topics, including budget level breakdowns, some previous questions that were submitted, as well as the administrative reorganization and a newspaper article. But that's it, and that concludes my report.
Thank you. Property Committee, Mr. Phillips.
Good evening. We had our Property Committee meeting June 8th, and it was continued. We ran out of time. It was continued to the 15th also. We had 3 topics on the agenda. One was the easiest one first, which was facilities use. And what we're looking there to do is to find out and determine what our facilities cost as far as athletics, auditorium, things that community groups use, the district itself uses. Also, on the agenda, we had the capital projects for 2015-2016. They included roof leak repairs at Arcola, around $50,000. Arcola roof duct insulation repairs, which was $20,000. High school pool liner and painting, that comes in around 17. Arrowhead, a meter pit installation for water hookup, which is 20,000. Arrowhead roof leak repairs around 10,000. And then finally, we had discussed the project financing for the ESCO for the our energy use in the district. And this is important. This is the board approved us to go ahead and have this study done. And it's the first part's done, and now we have to, later tonight we'll be voting on the rest of it. And I'll read this as it follows. It is the unanimous recommendation of the Property Committee from its June 15th meeting for a Phase 1 ESCO self-funding project with Snyder Electric for interior LED lighting and water conservation upgrades at Arcola Skyview, and interior-exterior LED lighting, building envelope, and water conservation upgrades at the high school. This recommendation is placed on tonight's school board's agenda under 9.10 as an action for project contracting and financing. Pending your approval this evening, the project will commence in July 2015. So that pretty much sums up my report this evening. If Dave, Herb, or Maria have anything to add, please do.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Phillips. 6.3 Human Resources Committee, Mr. Roth.
Yes, thank you. Good evening. The Human Resources Committee meeting did convene on June 11th, 2015. We had 2 major topics that we discussed. One was a substitute teacher report, and Mr. Harney was was good enough to report on the status of the use of substitute teachers within the school district. And basically, we're focusing on, the substitute teacher pay rate, as well as we touched on the guest teacher program and how we monitor the usage of that. The Methacton School District pays $85 an hour or day for a substitute teacher, and then after a period of time, it goes to $95. The state average is $87, so we're really close to that average mark. The key point of this whole thing was our fill rate. And the fill rate for the teachers is at the same level as other neighboring districts that are paying, some paying the same or some paying a little bit more. So it doesn't seem that raising the rate of pay would increase our fill rate. I forget, what was our percentage of our fill rate? What was it up? 94%. So the other thing that we talked about was the hiring process of the report of the positions filled as a result of the retirements, noting that there were few positions open at the time, but it was expected that all those positions would be filled very soon. That copy of the report is attached to the HR committee minutes online. And that's it for my report. Thank you.
Thank you. If you'd like to pay me $85 an hour, I'll come tutor your kids.
That's my wishful thinking for myself. Thank you.
Moving on to item 6.4, Education Committee, Ms. Hackett.
The Education Committee met on June the 1st. All members were in attendance. We received a report from Mrs. Catono on the summary of math standards for K to 4. And that also gives lots of information about how our curriculum functions in the math area. Another item that we talked about was a schedule of yearly topics so that we make sure that we cover all of the areas that relate to education during the course of the year. And we have a schedule of that, and I do believe that's attached to the agenda tonight, so people can review that and see when we expect to hear about particular topics. There was an update on the Jump Start program, which happens in the summer. It runs for the 3 weeks in August and takes place at Woodland Elementary School. And the purpose of this program is to improve the students' abilities prior to the first day of kindergarten. And we then received the 3-year professional development plan, which is part of the comprehensive plan that was submitted to the state. And we also got a report on enrollment and learned that there were 250 students enrolled for kindergarten for this coming September, as of the date of this meeting, which was about 3 or 4 weeks ago. And Dr. Ansett reported on an opportunity for a pre-K counts program, which is going to be operated by the MCIU throughout the county if they receive their grant. So this is sort of speculative. We have offered one classroom for the 2015-16 school year at the Eagleville School. We have many eligible students in the district, and of course one classroom would only handle a certain number of them. So there are many other districts that have also offered classrooms. It's expected to be a valuable preparation for kindergarten. That concludes my report.
Thank you. Is that grant to the IU, is that part of the pre-K for PA initiative, or is that just something completely different?
I don't think it's part of the pre-K for PA. This is a specific grant MCIU's doing, right?
The pre-K counts is something that was actually started in Pennsylvania about 6 or 7 years ago.
Okay, I'm thinking of something different.
And they have a certain amount of money every year that's competitive.
Great. Okay. Thank you. Moving on to item 6.5, Communications and Community Relations. Mr. McFarland.
Thank you. The committee met on June 2nd and developed in that meeting the board update that was delayed several weeks due to rewrites and some other issues until early this week when it was released. The next issue that we produce, we intend to have a full review of the board goals that were established late last October. We are still pursuing alternative delivery methods. There is some progress there, but nothing definitive yet. So that's, we're still sending this out through the email blasts and not through any other alternative methods, but we still hope to expand this in some way. So that was our activity. That's my report.
Thank you. Policy Committee, Ms. Woodring.
Thank you. Policy Committee met on June 11th. Our agenda included 6 policies. 5 are on the agenda later on for a first read. The 4 handbooks that we worked on, student handbooks for the 4 levels of our schools, are also on the agenda for a first read. And there are 11 policies on the agenda for final approval. It should be noted here that there are some policies that we are still hoping can make their way into the final version of the student handbooks. And one of those is a brand-new policy on suicide awareness and prevention that we went over with Dr. Angstead at the meeting. And our next meeting will be August 12th at 9:30. Thank you.
Thank you. Moving on to intermediate units. Mr. Phillips.
Yes, I have no report on the intermediate or North Monca Technical Career Center.
Okay. Ms. Woodring, anything on North Monca?
Yeah, I have a few things. I participated in the North Montco Tech Center's planning session. That was the end of May. That was an excellent session, very efficiently run, and hopefully we got to some good meat for the administrators to parlay all our thoughts and ideas into their plan for next year. I also attended the Senior Recognition Night on June 4th, where all the graduating students are recognized for their program achievements. Lots of awards, lots of acknowledgments, always a very, very well done, well-attended ceremony. I did not attend the June JOC meeting. However, there were some things on the board briefs that I thought were worthy of mention. They had a tree dedication for one of their technical students from Souderton who had passed away this year. They are also applying for 3 state grants. The superintendent of record for next year will be Dr. Rogers again. That will be his 2nd year. And we approved our JOC meeting dates for the 15-16 school year, among many other sort of items of routine business, some salary increases for staff, approvals of trips, etc. That's it for me.
Thank you. Communications, Ms. Lynch.
This summer, the Communications Office directs the community education programs throughout the school district, and we're happy to report that all of our families who registered for programs this year registered online, which created a lot less paperwork for our office staff, freeing Kathy up to do a lot of other things and maybe reducing the amount of gray hair that she grows over this summer. We have hundreds of students that are already on campus. It started last week, and it'll continue through the summer into the end of July. We have students doing Kids Time programs, which are sort of like a daycare program. They're swimming at the high school, sports programs. So there's a lot of exciting things for students to do and still many opportunities to sign up. So we encourage parents to do that. Also of note, next week I'll be leading the EFMC board in a summer workshop that's designed to revise the group's grant application requirements. Part of this effort will be to establish requirements for measurements and outlines of instructional goals associated with grants that are rewarded by the foundation. Thank you.
Thank you. Superintendent's report, Dr. Zerbe.
Thank you, Mr. President. As I have previously reported, Methacton High School junior Tara Mehta was awarded a scholarship to participate in a language immersion program sponsored by the U.S. State Department. Tara recently departed for Morocco, where she will be studying Arabic. We were notified that she is writing a blog about her experience, and it can be found at moroccanmirror.wordpress.com for those of you who wish to follow Tara's travels. Tara has recently, we've notified the board that she will serve as a board rep for the next school year. Additionally, I have noticed to the board that the Philadelphia Eagles Network is producing a group of feature films titled The Road to Victory, highlighting inspirational stories of people overcoming the odds and succeeding in life. The organization chose Liam McClure, a 10th grade Methacton High School student, as one of their people to highlight, focusing on the effect that the Methacton High School football team has had on transforming his life by accepting him, befriending him, and helping him with his struggles. You'll recall that the board recognized Coach Lepre recently and his team for their receipt of the Inclusion Award in February, also honoring the team's support of Liam. Filming will take place during the team's summer camp later this August. Additionally, I'd like to share with the board and the public, for the second year in a row, we are proud to report that the Pac-10 recognized Arcola Intermediate School with the Sportsmanship Award. This award honors our students and coaches and the high value that Methacton places on good sportsmanship and respect. Regarding graduation, I just want to thank Ms. Landis and all the district personnel, administrators, teachers, and support staff who made the 2015 graduation a success. While we have had much success these past two graduations indoors, I know that Ms. Landis and her team will be planning for our future ceremonies outside at the soon-to-be-completed stadium field. Regarding the field project, an update I'd like to just provide. The Methacton High School field project continues to make significant progress towards completion. While we are continuing to work with contractors to address some delays, we have witnessed substantial progress on earthwork the last few weeks, with progress on the auxiliary field and stadium field. We have seeded the large stormwater basin, and I will be preparing our second project progress report for the public within the next 2 weeks. This report, similar to the first issue, will include pictures of the progress and an update on our schedule. Regarding fundraising, Ms. Lynch has been working with our vendors to recommend a plan to address the final aspects of the giving wall that the board has approved many months ago. She has also been working with sign companies to address information needs towards our finalization on naming rights and advertisements. I am happy to say that we are 83% of the way to our goal of $1.7 million, and I will be addressing our status, future plans, and potential future needs with the Capital Campaign Committee in the very near future. And lastly, as attached to the agenda for this evening, there's a listing of students that deserve recognition. I want to congratulate all the recipients of the Pac-10 Spring All-Conference teams for the following: academic team, baseball, boys and girls lacrosse, softball, tennis, and boys and girls track and field. Lastly, on that list, I would like to also recognize Eric Marburger for being awarded the Distinguished Citizen Athlete Award. Congratulations to Eric and all the outstanding student athletes. That ends my report.
Excellent. Thank you. Yes.
I have one more thing.
Please.
Yeah, I just wanted to, number one, thank, I guess, the administration for our yearbooks and call attention to the Apollo. For the third year now, I was in attendance at the launch ceremony for this literary magazine that is born out of our 7th and 8th graders. And this makes them published. It also includes illustrations, and they are now forever recognized through the Library of Congress. These are on sale online. There are some wonderful works in here. The 7th graders really rocked this. They dominated. This is the thickest it has ever been. So I wanted to let everybody know this is a good read. Thanks.
Well said. Good point. Okay, no other reports, and we'll move on to public comment on a board action item. Is there any public comment on board action items? Mr. Andrews.
Good evening. John Andrews, Lower Providence. I want to talk about the administrative reorganization aspect of a voting item for this evening. Last December, Mr. Nascimento announced a do-away of the board's monthly working meetings. This change cut public awareness of most vote items from 8 days to 1 day, a major change that is unconventional. I recall the PA legislature, perhaps a decade ago, did a middle-of-the-night vote on a surprise bill to immediately raise the salaries of the legislature and judges. Without public comment or review, it passed and Rendell signed it. 4 months later, the legislature raises were unanimously overturned after deserved public outcry. Now, and likely even then, the rules that they run by required 3 days of bill postings prior to the vote. Here we have many recent instances of votes made in haste, or perhaps not well thought out information. I mentioned the first RFP for fields that got 0 bids, the attempted silencing of an athletic coach, contracts to get solicitor review after the vote, hiring PEL without an RFP, and more. Now we have the curious issue of administrative reorganization that adds 2 chief officers. Here's what little the public and taxpayers know of this so far. This Monday at 6 p.m., the agenda said Budget Impact Administrative Reorg. Tuesday at 6 p.m., the Finance Committee met, and it was detailed at 2 positions. 1 chief officer and a secretary for that position would add $266,590 of money claimed already in the budget. It was planned prior to the May 26th preliminary final vote, and surfaces now at a Finance Committee meeting rather than an HR meeting. Wednesday at 7 p.m. yesterday, the board's agenda for tonight was posted, and still we have no position descriptions. This all smacks of backroom deals, whether it is or not. We especially deserve detail on the position of Chief Program Officer. Why not an Assistant Superintendent position? What happens to Ms. Katona's position description? There is no need to rush. Just table the motion for further study. Among other issues, it sends the wrong message to our taxpayers and the MEA, even if legal. Also, let's revisit the monthly working meetings that were canceled at the beginning of this year. Thank you.
Thank you. Additional public comment on board action items? Ms. Alabak?
Unfortunately, I couldn't make the beginning of the Finance Committee meeting Tuesday night due to the weather.
Oh yeah, Candy. Name and
excuse me.
Sorry.
At this point, everybody knows who I am. But we have 2 positions that we're going to bump up Mr. Whiteleather, Chief Financial Officer, with a nice salary. I don't know what his increased duties will be. These are issues that should be discussed publicly in front of the public before any vote is taken, and an explanation as to why the board feels the need to do this. We have a Chief Programming Officer. I mean, we keep adding positions. At this point, we have a 0% tax increase this year. We're going to be paying for this next year. I mean, at this point, when I get my tax bill, it's going to look exactly like it did last year, and I'm still going to struggle to pay it. Next year, I see this 0%, and I see this big storm cloud coming up behind it. And, I mean, I've heard people in the school district say they'll pay whatever they have to. That's fine, let them. There's a lot of us that are on fixed incomes. Now we're adding positions. You added a transportation director after you canned the bus drivers. When we got rid of the lunch ladies, the public was told we weren't in the lunch business. We were told that the school district is not in the transportation business. That's why we got rid of the bus drivers. So now you're adding more positions on. I mean, I've been sitting in this room for going on 9 years. I'd like to know what Mr. Whiteleather, and no offense, this isn't personal, what he has done that is so extraordinary that we're going to change his title and give him a pay raise. I haven't seen it unless it's been done outside the public. But I personally take exception to the fact that we keep adding on and adding on and adding on. And we need to see we need to see improvement in our education in the school district. We need, and this fits in with the budget, we need to be an outstanding, exceptional school district. We're adding on positions. I see what Norristown School District did. They eliminated 3 courses, reassigned their teachers, turned around and gave their superintendent a 3-year contract with no one knows what the salary is, hired a superintendent, and then say, we have to raise your taxes. That's not fair to the taxpayer. This is the stuff that's in this agenda that I'm looking at tonight. I don't think it's fair to us. I'm looking at the electrical contract, which includes Skyview and Arcola. I know a lot of you weren't on the board when Skyview, the mess that Skyview came before the public. I sat in the residents' meetings with Dr. Quinn, and he said how great the geothermal wells were. I have 108 behind my house. They were supposed to bring a large substantial saving to the school district. That in Woodland, one that has 46. I have yet, in all these years, know what the substantial savings is. I have heard there's been issues up there. I don't know. I mean, I researched the wells. They're not effective here. But now you want to hire an electric company, consultants to come in. I think it's great. They need to show us how to save money, because all of us should save money electric. But where do you're proving this with no explanation to any of us. We need to go back to a work session. You need to take the agenda and discuss it publicly and have dialogue with the public and explain to us why you're doing this and what for, and then the next week to vote on it. But right now, this doesn't look good. And I'm not saying this to beat up on you. This is my opinion. And I mean, I can't afford this anymore. And I mean, if it's good for the district, it's good for the students, great. But it also has to be good for the taxpayers. We come first, because without us, you have no students, you have no school district. So you need to consider this when you start voting to spend more of our money. And our tax bills will be going out very shortly. And I mean, I appreciate, the 0%. We should have had it in the good years in this school district, which weren't too long ago. But really, I think that is just putting a Band-Aid on an open wound. And that's my perspective from sitting here. Based on the information that you give me, I don't know what else is going on. But I hope you really consider this. I mean, I don't want to beat up on you. I'm just giving you my perspective. And I want to see you do the right thing by the taxpayers first. And consider us first when you make these decisions. But you need to explain why Mr. Whiteleather's getting these bumps. I mean, I don't understand it. So hopefully it will be a reasonable explanation. But we need to have one. Thank you.
Thank you. So, Katie, 2 things real quick, and I see Diana waiting there, and Dr. Zerbe will talk about the reorg later. But I think, we are thinking about the taxpayers. That's why we didn't increase taxes. We didn't feel like it was right to increase taxes when we had a $2 million surplus. And the chief program officer position that Dr. Zerbe is proposing, that is paying money towards education. I mean, that's adding educational functions to the district. So those are the things that we think we should be spending on. Diana? Okay. No comments. Thank you.
Diana Kernop, MEA co-president. I'm looking at 9.9, and I don't know if you're going to explain the Mayo agreement. Certainly, I would like to commend the board that you keep right on target getting contracts with the administrators done on time. I commend you. Is this going to be explained, what the agreement is, before you vote on it or after you vote on it? And, yeah, go ahead. Go ahead.
The changes or the contract extension is outlined and it's posted online.
Is it going to be stated publicly here?
Yes. We will review what the components are.
And the second question I would have is that several months ago, you passed a motion where you hired Jeff Sultanic to represent the board in any negotiations or settlements that were made with any of your groups. And while Mayo is not a bargaining group, it is a group that you are giving a contract in effect to for 2 years. Was Mr. Sultanic involved in those negotiations and at all those meetings?
No, he was not.
I didn't think so. Thank you.
Additional public comment? Mr. Bickelman.
Joe Bickelman from Audubon. I'm questioning board action item, let me find it here, 13.2, administrative reorganization. I was real happy back in January when Mr. Nascimento established an HR committee, okay? There's a new position on here for Chief Program Officer. It was never discussed at the HR committee. You know, I find that unusual. I think that should be hashed out with the HR committee members. A proposal brought to the committee, reviewed with the superintendent at the committee level, and a recommendation coming out of committee. Items to be discussed are job duties, salary, things like that. And I don't know why it didn't come through HR committee. Along with the chief financial officer, the change from the business manager to chief financial officer, why that wasn't discussed at the HR committee and a recommendation brought to the board. I don't know why it came up on Tuesday night as an aside at the financial meeting. The financial aspect of that comes after the HR committee gives a blessing to the two positions, the change and the new position. It just seems only logical to me. If you can't discuss those kind of items at the HR committee, I don't know what you can discuss. The $160,000, Mr. Whiteleather was hired back in the 12-13 school year for $143,000. I just did some 2% increases to that, and to me, he probably is making around $150,000, $2,000, $3,000 raises. So it looks like a $10,000 increase. And percentage-wise, that might be like, what, 6%, 6-7%. So it just seems a little high. I also like to address the same thing with the new administrative agreement. That should be discussed at the HR committee meeting. Any aspects of that, it could be bannered around, not to get. And you could talk about salary because salaries are public knowledge. You could talk about those things at the HR committee. You can see what the ramifications are of that on a per position basis. That new agreement has $107,000, I believe, allocated to bring administrators up to the average of the IU report for salaries for the different positions. So I think that means, yeah, you get the 2% raise, and if you're not at the average for the position for the listings at the IU, you're going to get a bump up, and that $107,000 represents those bumps up for those positions, which could exceed the 2%. Now, I'm not aware of a max, you do that for market conditions, you're comparing salaries to market, you don't want to lose people. So I don't know, and I'm not aware of any mass exodus of administrators from this district. I don't know, it seems like you have your salary set where they are. People aren't leaving. The only people that leave here are people that have 35 years, like Dennis McCall, the business manager, or if there's a scandal at the top. That's why people leave. So I think you have the salary set properly. I don't think you need to spend the additional money. The other thing I want to address is, when it was presented Tuesday night, and tonight here again, it said the chief financial officer and the new position for program coordinator, it was stated like this: there's no impact on the 15-16 budget. Of course not. because that's when it's first appearing. The impact occurs from 14-15 to 15-16. You know, what is that impact? It's a new position, and it's a salary increase in excess of the normal 2% for the administrators. Of course there's not going to be an impact on the 15-16 budget. That's where it first appears. So those are my concerns about that. And I'd like to thank the board for having a 0% tax increase. That's a lot of hard work goes into that. The other item I want to talk about is 13.2, the budget. And I want to just read this article that I mentioned the other night. It has to do with the budget. It's in the Times-Herald, May 28th. Stuart Whiteleather, the district's business administrator, said the increase in PEASER's contribution from 14-15 to 15-16 went from $9.1 million to $10.9 million. That increase was relatively mild because of the outsourcing of the busing staff. I don't think a net increase of $900,000 is a mild increase. I really don't. Plus, he gives credit to outsourcing the bus drivers to take the sting out of that. That's in this newspaper that I read. The other item I want to talk about is 9.6, insurance carriers and premiums. Item number 3, why is workman's comp increasing $32,000 when we just saw the budget presentation saying workman's comp is going down 80-some thousand? I don't know why that is.
Can we answer that, Mr. Whiteleather?
Yes, the original budget projection for 15-16 was based on an increase that was provided to me by our, incumbent workers' comp carrier based upon our final rate that we received and is on for board approval this evening. The differential between those two numbers resulted in the savings that is reflected on the presentation this evening.
So the workman's comp budget number in 14-15, was that an actual rate that you expected to pay in 14-15? The amount that's budgeted in 14-15. So that was the actual amount that you paid? Because it's pretty cut and dry, black and white at that point.
It's not black and white and cut and dry. We participate workers' comp through SDIC. SDIC workers' comp insurance covers up to a certain limit. If you have claims in excess of that, you can have additional surcharges. That is something that we had through our current carrier. So while the budget reflects a number that we believe to be accurate for purposes of paying workers' compensation, it doesn't necessarily reflect the actual dollar amount that we would pay at the end of the year.
Thanks for the interaction.
Additional, Diana, back again?
Yeah, no questions.
Go ahead.
I was listening to this gentleman speak about the money that's in when you went to the Finance Committee meeting and the $107,000, I believe it is, for bringing the administrators up to the county average. And I'm curious because under a right-to-know request in about 2005, when I got a copy of the Mayo Agreement, there's language in the Mayo Agreement that's standard language that annually they're brought up to the average in the county. So they get the 2% raise, and then I believe it's mid-year, they get an adjustment to keep them in the average in the county. But I'm curious, at what point are they at the average that you don't need to keep having this clause in their contract or adjusting them? And you probably don't have an answer for that.
We're going to address that when we get to that item, but.
Okay, thank you.
Additional public comment on board action item? Yep.
Good evening. Michael Ryan, Lower Providence. My comments refer to board action item listed under 11.3 regarding approving one classroom at Eagleville Elementary to be used as a pre-K counts classroom for the 2015 school year. Classroom use contingent on MCIU's grant approval by PDE. MCIU will assume all costs, including instructor, instructional aids, and curricular materials. Although I was not at the education meeting on June 1st, the following is a section from the minutes. Dr. Angstedt reported on an opportunity for a pre-K counts program, which would be operated by the MCIU under a grant it has applied for. The district has offered one classroom for the 2015-16 school year at Eagleville Elementary School. There are many eligible students in the district who could possibly participate in the program. Several other districts have also offered classrooms, which could be a valuable preparation for kindergarten. My question here, and I hope that there can be a real discussion when it comes time to approve this item. Why are we only able to offer up one classroom? It is my understanding that there were roughly 170 or so potential children who would qualify for this program in Methacton, and there is a program limit of, I believe, 20 children per class. So by offering up one classroom, we are only able to help 20 of the 170 children, about 12%. Even if you only focus on having 4-year-olds eligible, because 3 and 4 are eligible under this program, you would still only roughly be helping about 25% of the eligible children. Now, depending on full versus half day, you could technically get 2 classrooms in a day if you did half day. So you could help 40 kids, but we're talking 40 out of 170. As a community, all we have heard about since the beginning of the school year is how much excess capacity our schools have. In fact, we just heard more about it on Tuesday night. Do we have excess capacity or not? Because if we do, again I ask, why only one classroom? Pre-K Counts is a phenomenal program whose benefits have been quantified. In fact, here are some of the highlights. June 2011, Pennsylvania Pre-K Counts promotes children's school readiness and school success. Nearly every child, 99%, showed age-appropriate or emerging age-appropriate language, math, and social skills after attending Pennsylvania Pre-K Counts. Proficiency increases in the following subjects. Language and literacy from 15% in the fall to 75% in the spring. Mathematical, 13% to 74%. Personal and social development, 21% to 80%. And finally, scientific thinking from 13% to 74%. Kindergarten teachers report that children who attend Pennsylvania Pre-K Counts make a smoother transition to kindergarten and have the necessary language, math, and social skills. That comes directly from their own report. So in conclusion, this is the perfect example how we can truly make educational gains in Methacton by offering a program like this. But by only offering it to 20 or 40 students, we are failing as a school district to address the needs of all of our future students at absolutely zero additional cost to the district. It will be picked up by the IU. Thank you.
Good evening. Paul Winters, Lower Providence. Just wanted to follow up on the substitute teacher question that came up in the HR committee. So some questions I would have are, if we have a 94% fill rate, are we accepting the 6% because it's on average? What happens to the students during those 6% where we don't fill? That's a question. Was that question asked? My second question would be, do we ask the principals or the teachers, do we have a problem with substitute teachers, or did we do it in a subcommittee and not get feedback? A third question I would ask is, what is the neighboring school, Springford, Perkiomen Valley? What is the average? Are we using our average from Beaver County? Are we using our average compared to the substitute teachers we're trying to get? That would be a question I would ask. The final question I would ask is, are we willing to pay an administrative assistant for Fields Project more than we are substitute teachers? Thank you.
Additional public comment on board action items? Okay.
Kim Aubrey Larson, East Lower Providence. I wanted to reiterate the questions and concerns that were already raised regarding the administrative positions that are being changed and added. I'm hoping that we get clarification on what a chief programming officer does and how it differs from the directors of curriculum and directors of pupil services that we already have. And specifically, I also want to know what the difference is between a director of business services and a chief financial officer. In doing a little bit of research on what duties fall under that category, in other districts, I noticed that some directors of business services have supervision over transportation and food services, neither of which is offered or is part of our districts right now. I don't know if transportation is something that fell under business services previously, but I'm just curious as to how the position of Director of Business Services has changed over the last 2.5 years to necessitate this promotion. And then also, if it's already accounted for in the budget for the next school year, and for some reason the board decides not to approve these positions, are we going to have to then not approve the budget because that would have to be taken back out? Another question that I had was regarding item 9.8, the agreement for Fidavia, the construction management company. In the May 26th meeting, you had voted to approve hiring them for a maximum of $10,000. And tonight, it looks like we're hiring them for an amount of $2,000 a week for 17 weeks. So I just wanted to know what the discrepancy is there. And then finally, I noticed that we have a resignation of a school counselor at Skyview, but I don't see that position advertised on their website. So I'm wondering where we're at in advertising and filling that position prior to the start of the school year. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Megan Fitzgerald Audubon. I just wanted to echo Mike Ryan's comments about the pre-K counts program that was discussed at the education meeting on June 1st. I think it would be a terrific solution to the excess capacity that we have. I know that it is a 1 to 3 year grant, so it would be a short-term fix, but there are 177 kids in the district who've been identified to qualify for the program. It is a full-day program, and you can only have 20 kids in it. And we've offered 1 classroom, which is great, but we could offer more if we have excess capacity. I believe Norristown has offered 12 classrooms. So if we could offer 9 classrooms and service all 177 boys and girls, it would give them a jump start in their education, in their life, and give us more time to really examine this crucial issue. So please think about it. Thank you.
If I could just jump in, just give me a second. I just want to make it clear that we've committed to making sure that there's 1 classroom available. It doesn't necessarily preclude us if the IU gets the grant or gets additional funding from what they originally intended to get in order for us to take on additional classrooms. It's just that other districts with different socioeconomic qualifications have typically greater access to some of these types of programs. So we are interested in serving all of our students, and if we have the opportunity to do so, we will. We just had the opportunity to make the commitment for the 1 school district at 1 classroom at this time.
But did we offer the 1, or did the NCIU say you can only provide 1 classroom?
The conversation that occurred prior to the submittal of the grant from the IU, since we're not one of the socioeconomically more disadvantaged districts, we have less access to the numbers at the end of the process. So we've committed to 1. If when they receive the grant, if we have the ability to take on additional classrooms, we will review that with our pupil services director and director of curriculum and building principals, of course, and offer those classrooms if we can. It really ties back to the funding. So it's not that we chose to limit the classrooms, and it has nothing to really do with space, other than we certainly had to make sure that we had space available if we make the commitment in the grant. So we'd like to certainly offer more space if we can.
And we'll find out in July? Is that when they're going to make a decision?
I don't know.
We don't know when they're going to find out if the grant monies are going to be received. They did think it would be early on. That's why the whole grant was rolled out, so that you could make all of your preparations for September. But of course, with the state budget right now kind of on hold, we are waiting to see if they will in fact get the money. And as soon as we know that, then we'll be able to make whatever plans we need to.
Okay, so there's a chance then that we could offer more than one classroom if we have if they give us the funds?
Based on the grant, availability of the grant funds.
Okay, great.
Wait, can I add something to that? As a member of the Education Committee, when this was brought up to us at our meeting, some of the first questions we asked were, can we offer this to more children? Because it was presented that there were this many numbers of children that could take advantage. What was answered to us through Dr. Angstadt was that we, in fact, don't have that option at all at this point, that they are offering us, meaning the IU, they're offering us one classroom. And at that point, we said, well, if there is more space, please bring them over here. We'll option to have more classrooms because it's their teachers, it's their expense. All they're doing is asking for classroom space. So this is not the board saying no. This is not the board not taking care of our children. This is us saying, yes, please bring these children, bring this opportunity. We will give it to our children because we can. So it's a little backwards the way you're presenting it, because
No, I was at the meeting. I heard.
Right, so then you would know that we said, hey, if there's more option, bring them to us, and we'll take care of it.
I don't recall them saying that the MCIU offered.
Yes, that's exactly how Dr. Angstadt presented it, that the IU came to Methacton and other school districts in Montgomery County with this grant proposal, and that's what's happening.
All right, thanks for the clarification.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
Take the step. Katie Donnelly, Audubon. First, I think that's great. Unfortunate that there's not more room at Audubon, that we couldn't have that pre-K class there because they're all filled. I do have a question regarding the substitute teachers, the 94% fill. Does that include, I know my daughters had at Audubon instructional staff that have certifications subbing for them, so support staff subbing. Does that include the support staff? Are they considered filled when the support staff is taken from their everyday position to sub for a classroom position?
Mr. Harnett?
No, it's not.
That's not considered filled?
No, it's not. If we have to cover that classroom, it's not considered filled.
Okay, thank you.
I'd just like to make another comment regarding, if you don't mind staying, just to make a comment regarding the substitute teacher discussion that we had. There was a previous comment about the 6%, the difference between, and it's actually a number that we're trying to address. We're not satisfied with the fact that 94 seems like a good number, but I think, as the gentleman that mentioned, that actually is not good enough. And Mr. Harney's working with other HR directors in Montgomery County and the IU to address that issue. It just so happens.
I get that, but I do know plenty
I just wanted to comment on that.
Methacton that, their schools are in their backyards, and they'd rather go to, my husband's at Springford, and I know what they pay, and they want to go there and other places because it's significant, and it's not the cost of gas getting there. That's not doing it. So they're going other places for a day when they can, and that's concerning. So trust me, I don't want to spend more money either.
I know, and we've heard the same thing. We've heard the same thing, and the other comment was, did we talk to teachers? And that's something that I've done. And we know we are trying to address it. It's a delicate thing. It's not just a matter of should we just throw money at it.
It sounded like it was passed over and then
No, we're certainly not doing.
It was done, and that's what it just came across.
It may appear that way, but we're taking it seriously, and we're trying to do the best we can and the right thing for our students.
We might not always get it, but at least if we're comparable to other school districts, we're doing our best, and that's
good point.
Back again.
Yeah, just real quick, Michael Ryan, Lower Providence. Just wanted clarification for the public's purpose here. There was an explanation given by Dr. Zerby with the one classroom, that's what we offered. If they could give us more, That's what would happen.
It's not what we offered, it's what they asked. What's what they offered.
Hold on 1 second, please. And then Ms. Barone had said that, no, that's not the case. That's actually what they offered us. And I would just like confirmation that it's either Ms. Barone or or Dr. Zerbe's. Which one is the truth? Okay, because generally when you build up, no, but when you build up a grant, you generally build it from the bottom up and ask for a certain amount of money.
Yeah, so what we may have used different words, but what our intent was in what we're saying is simply the same. And the same is that we are only limited by the available grant funds, and it is based on our socioeconomic status. So we have one classroom, we've committed to one classroom, and that's what we're at this point. If we have the ability to add additional classrooms, we will do that. I'm sorry, we will consider that, just because obviously you're making a play on words, and I want to make sure that I'm accurate. I want to tell you that we will consider it, like I said earlier, because it's not just a matter of because it's available, we will do it, but we need to administratively review it, and if it makes sense for us to do it, which we know that we have a population greater than what we're currently available to serve, we will certainly consider it. But thank you for helping us clarify it.
Hi, Carolyn Hopkisang, Lower Providence. I had a question under item 13.2, the administrative reorganizations. I was looking at the attachment that gave the total impact of the new position, and it has $193,366, which I guess is the cash outlay impact. But under Secretary to the CFO, CPO, it says that it is an existing position in the business office, which I don't think at this point is filled. So if that does get filled, wouldn't that be an additional $73,000 cash outlay that we're currently not putting out at this point, since the position, albeit open, isn't filled? So the cash outlay would be the 193 plus the 73? That's just
Mr.
a comment. It's on the attachment.
The position is budgeted. It has been budgeted since the reorganization within the business office occurred. So the position and the dollars associated with that position are part of the budget.
So that next year, because it hasn't been filled, then next year, because it will be filled, our excess fund balance then would be reduced by that amount, because right now the position's not being filled, and if it has been continued to be budgeted, it's just we're not expending the funds. Is that a fair statement?
Well, that's correct. I mean, the position isn't filled, but the position has been budgeted for, and when it is filled, it would become an expense, and that expense would be captured within the budget as the funds are allocated for that.
Right, but my point is, if we're not, just like in another budget, if we're not expending all the funds, then that goes into the surplus we have. So if that position was budgeted for last year, and we're not expending the cash, then it is, in essence, creating a surplus someplace. So by filling this, we would not then have
That is correct. If we didn't fill the position in the current budget year that we're in, that would contribute to some of the presented $300,000 surplus that Mr. Whiteleather had presented earlier this evening.
So we haven't filled it last year.
That's correct. So we plan. So it's budgeted for.
It's filled, budgeted for, and in essence, had a little bit of surplus because we weren't expending the dollars on the position.
Yeah. That's correct.
And then the other thing is, what is the term for an administrator for a contract? Is it 3 years? Is it 5 years? Is 5 years typical for a business chief financial officer? Do our other administrators have 5-year I don't know if they have contracts, or is this position have a contract?
There are different requirements for different administrative positions. So, for example, for a superintendency position, it cannot exceed 5 years. There are not similar stipulations for other administrative positions other than, an assistant superintendent. So both the superintendent and assistant superintendent have their contracts regulated by statute, whereas other administrators' contracts can vary, can be year to year, can be multiple years as the board so desires.
Okay, and The position before it was reclassed as Chief Financial Officer, was that term a 3-year term or a 2-year term, and now the CFO is a 5-year term? Is there a difference between the term that Mr. Whiteleather had before and what he is getting now?
I believe that his original term upon hire was a 5-year term.
Term of contract.
Term of contract.
Okay, so in essence, it wasn't like a contract was up at this point in time?
It was not as a result of a contract expiring.
Okay.
Correct.
And the other thing is, as an employee of the district, when things like this come up, I echo the sentiments that it would be nice to see something come out with a job description so that, we aren't always hearing things whisper down the lane. There's a lot of speculation as to why changes were made, but the communication really isn't always there. And, it would be nice to see a job description so we know, how this may impact, the support staff at some point in time.
Good question. I have that part of my statements later this evening.
Great, thank you.
Thank you. Additional public comment on board action items? Okay, moving on to item number 8, board meeting minutes. I will ask for a motion to approve the board meeting minutes of the meeting held on May 26, 2015. Is there a motion? Ms. Woodring, is there a second? Mr. Roth? You were a little slow out of the gate, buddy, sorry. So we have
It's kind of hard from here.
okay, any discussion? Okay, seeing none, all those in favor? I'm sorry. Wait, hold on, Jim.
I was not at that meeting, so I'm not going to vote.
You're going to abstain?
Abstain.
Okay. All right, so all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Passes 8-0 with 1 abstention. Item number 9, fiscal items. Mr. Whiteleather.
Thank you. A couple items on for this evening. Item 9.1 is our monthly list of bills on for your approval and as reviewed by Finance Committee. Same would apply to item 9.2, Treasurer's Report, as well provided to Finance Committee on for your approval this evening. Item 9.3, as presented earlier this evening, is a motion on for the approval of the general fund budget for the 15-16 fiscal year in the amount of $101,124,091, requiring a millage rate of 27.90 and an increase in the property tax of 0%. Item 9.4 reflects the Act 511 and Act 679 taxes, per capita LST tax, earned income tax, and amusement tax, applicable to both Lower Providence and Worcester Township. Item 9.5 is the yearly approval of our bank depositories as listed on your agenda. Item 9.6 is the, on for your approval is our list of insurance carriers as well as premium for 15-16. As well as the amounts applicable for each one of the lines of coverage and any associated increase or decrease reflective of those items. Item 9.7 is our homestead farmstead exclusion resolution. This is a resolution we have to approve annually for the distribution of the gaming funds that are provided through the state. Item 9.8 is the Fidavia agreement. Fidavia is our construction manager for the Athletic Improvement Project, on for your approval this evening as stated within the action item. Item 9.9 is the Methacton Administrative Organization Agreement, on for your approval to September 30th, 2017. And lastly, as reviewed by Property Committee this evening, is approval of the ESCO project to Snyder Electric for the Phase 1 project at Arcola and Skyview and the high school in the amount of $2,428,935, as well as the project financing with Bank of America at a term of 16.5 years at an interest rate of 2.49%. Just very quickly on item 2 under 9.10, we received multiple proposals from various banks, reviewed those, and determined that the Bank of America had the lowest interest rate and the best repayment terms of the submitted proposals to the school district. Thus, they are on for your approval this evening. And that concludes my report.
Thank you, Mr. Whiteweather. So I'm going to pull 9.3 out and take that separately. Are there any other items that any board member would like to take up separately?
Can you take out 9.8, 9.9?
Okay. Anything else?
9.10 as well.
Okay, so I'll ask for a motion to approve items 9.1, 9.2, 9.4, 9.5, 9.6, 9.7, and 9.7, that's it. Is there a motion to approve those as presented? Mr. Pelicano, is there a second? Mr. Roth, discussion? Ms. Woodring?
Yeah, I just have a question on 9.6. It appears as though we've got like two carriers, well, let me pull it up here. Two carriers for like bulk. Am I right? Yeah. LMK and Keystone. And I was just curious, was there no sort of one package deal that we could negotiate, maybe a better deal?
What we did in putting out for proposals from brokers, multiple brokers, in fact, just through the course of getting proposals back, not as I indicated during finance, there's two major players in the insurance market. PSBA is by far the largest broker or provider of insurances to school districts in the Commonwealth. But that's not to say that there would not be another line of coverage that would be available through another broker that would provide equal coverage to the school district at a lesser cost, which is the reason why, in looking down through the various lines of business that we would need to have, we weren't able to secure everything through one broker. We certainly want, first and foremost, we wanted to ensure that we had appropriate coverages to the school district, as well as maximizing the value to the school district for that particular line of coverage, which necessitated us kind of going through each one of those and selecting which one best suited the district, both operationally and financially.
Thank you. Ms. Hackett?
I have a couple of questions. 9.4, the taxes, the per capita, those small nuisance taxes, do we approve them each year?
Yes.
Okay. And is there any change in the amounts from last year?
There is no change.
Okay. So that's my first question. My second question has to do with the list of bills. And we have been running our field project for a while, and there aren't any payments to contractors or anything for the field project on our list of bills, and I was wondering how that happens.
The money we borrowed for the athletic project through the Emmaus Bond Fund, those funds are held through the Emmaus Bond Fund. We submit invoices to them for payment. We are tracking those expenditures, and we will be providing that information via the superintendent to the board as those those charges, those contractor payments are incurred. But for purposes of them running through a vendor payment, which you would see on a bill list, that particular bond fund does not run that way. We remit invoices directly to them. They remit payment directly to the vendor.
Okay. Thank you.
Other questions?
Yeah. Hey, I do. Under the earned income tax, the 0.5% that the townships take, if the township has a surplus annually between $750,000 to $1.5 million a year, and they're bankrolling that money into their general fund, is there a way that, as a school district, that we could limit how much of that earned income tax that they receive? Can we reduce it down to 25% instead, or
A quarter of a percent.
A quarter percent, exactly.
There is not. Actually, the earned income tax is administered separately from the school district, and the distribution of funds is outside of the school district. So we would not be able to limit or adjust any earned income tax dollars that would be going to the municipality, either one of the municipalities here in the Methacton School District.
Is there any way that we could force the township to give that money back to the taxpayers?
You would need to talk to the township.
Or raise an army, I guess.
It's, you know, one of the things, and I'll get that under 9.3. I'll wait for that to.
Okay. Other questions or comments? Okay, I have a motion for Mr. Pellicano and a second for Mr. Roth to...
The homestead, I meant to ask you, what is the amount this year, the homestead exception?
Do you have it?
People that are in the homestead farmstead.
$230.11.
Is that a little uptick from last year?
Yes.
Okay, I'm just asking so in case anybody that is in this in public wants to know, because it is a little uptick.
Yeah, no problem.
Thank you.
Okay, so I have a motion from Mr. Pellicano, a second from Mr. Roth to approve items 9.1, 2, 4, 5, 6, and 7. If there's no further comments, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Unanimous? All right, can I have a motion, moving on to item 9.3, can I have a motion to approve the final budget adoption for 2015?
I'll make the motion.
Okay. Motion from, second from Mr. Pellicano. Discussion? Okay, Mr. Phillips, you had a comment?
Yes, I'm glad to see, I'd probably say about 35 years is the first time that we had a 0%. I've always asked the board since I've been on the board to consider it, to work towards it. I'm glad we finally did it, but where I'm not happy is the fund balance aspect that we used. It's something that, and when we were setting goals as a board, that under the budget end is to look at our revenues and expenses. And if we're not changing our expenses to balance the budget, then we have to look at the revenues. And that is where the townships may fall short on how they conduct business with businesses, residents, bringing tax rateables into the school district. Worcester's probably the most deficient township in providing any kind of tax rateable to a school district in the county. It's one of the worst places to do business. And this is something where the board needs to start asking townships to step up to the plate for the tax rateables so we can handle $10 billion budget, which our students, it's probably about a little over $20,000 per student is our cost. So when the costs are that high per pupil, we have to start looking at what we can generate for as income and going to the townships. Going after the fund balance, it's a one-shot deal. It hasn't changed the environment and how we do business to balance the budget in the future, and that's what worries me is what the outcome is going to be next year or 3 years down the road. That's all.
Okay. Thank you. Mr. Pellicano?
Yeah, I just wanted to clarify that, as Mr. Whiteleather reported, we had a surplus of about $2 to $2.3 million, and the money is coming out of that surplus from this current fiscal year. We are still adding to the fund balance this year at least $1 million, if not more. So I think that more than satisfies our budget goals for our board goals as far as that goes.
Thank you. Additional questions or comments? Okay. Seeing none, there's a motion by Mr. Phillips and a second by Mr. Pellicano to approve the general fund budget of the Methacton School District for 2015-16 fiscal year in the amount of $101,124,091, requiring a millage of .02790 at an increase in property tax of 0%. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Unanimous? Congratulations.
Is this where the loving kiss comes in?
Are you asking me to
You mentioned today.
see me after the meeting? Sorry, honey. Okay, moving on to item 9.8. Can I have a motion to... Candy, I think you made me blush. Can I have a motion to approve the attached professional services agreement, construction management services with Fidavia, Inc., in the amount of $2,000 weekly, effective June 2nd, 2015 through September 30th, 2015? Is there a motion? Ms. Hackett, is there a second? Mr. Pellicano? Discussion.
I'd like to go first. Was this put through property committee?
This, Mr. Phillips, do you want to
answer that? Or?
Yes. Yeah, I didn't hear it.
Mr. Roth asked if the Fidavia agreement was put through property committee.
We did discuss Fidavia, and Dave, you can fill in the blanks on it. Explain it, please.
So, as a member of the public came forward this evening with a question on this particular item, there was a motion and an approval of an agenda item last month for $10,000, or not to exceed $10,000. So that is true. That was approved, and we then, as part of, if you recall, part of the board discussion was, is it going to be potentially needed to have them on site for more than that particular amount, and could it be projected that we would need that? My answer was, and I'm trying to paraphrase, that I hope we don't, but we may. The chances are we may need them, and so we certainly had some discussions, both administratively, regarding our need for assistance in managing the agreement and the scope of the project outside of what we are currently doing in-house. And as such, for us to be successful in meeting our target dates, the recommendation before you is to use the services of Fidavia up into including the date of September 30th for the weekly amount listed, to assist Mark Fretz, Mr. Whiteleather, and myself as part of the administrative team to address some of the challenges that we face with trying to make sure that we're on target and on time for the completion of the project.
Okay, so my next question is, how much have we paid Fidavia?
At the time, we had approximately $8,000 that we paid them as part of your last approval last month.
Right, so we've hit that, nearly hit that threshold. Now, this all goes towards what I'm getting at is that, the board passed on the idea of having an owner's rep, and now this is basically the reason why we're at this point, because we don't have an owner's rep, and this guy, Fidavia, is going to basically act as our owner's rep. So if you do the math, you're at about what, 35,000 that we're going to need, a little bit more.
About.
Yeah. So in a way, you're at what you would have spent anyway if we had done full bore, probably a little bit less. So I think, I'm not sure the point, but we were looking initially at somewhere between 100, 120, 125 for an owner's rep right out the gate. We do need this assistance. We are at some critical junctures that need the attention of more than what we can administratively address. So it is important that we move forward with this item. Right, and I understand that, and I would support that. I just wish that it would have been explained a little bit further
It just seems like that if we needed this right off the bat, which I think we needed, I know we needed it right off the bat, but it's just another piecemeal, and then to the public, it doesn't look that good. It doesn't look complete, all right? And that's why I'm in favor of doing something like this now, because now they're on board for the foreseeable completion of the project, for all intents and purposes. I just hope that it's enough. Thanks.
Dave, could I add something? I mean, in fairness, I'd have to say for the administration, I think, Dave, Dr. Zerbe was trying to save money here, for the public's perspective, trying to do more with Mark Fritz and all that. So in the end, I mean, we are saving money. I agree, Herb, it is piecemeal, but I think they did a good job getting it to this point. This is just getting it over the finish line.
Typically, owners reps 5 to 10% of what the job cost is. So you're looking at between $500,000 and $700,000 typically for an owner's rep, something like this.
Okay. Other questions or comments?
If I may.
Please.
I agree with the concept of a project management and having someone on board to do that. We are about 6 or 7 weeks from the scheduled completion, so I guess I'm wondering, what is it that Fidavia is going to do that would not happen if we didn't have them here? Are we behind on some things? Are there some contractual issues that they need to address? Or, in other words, if we come this far without them and we need to hire them now, what are some of the key things that they're going to be expected to help us accomplish?
Well, please be aware that we're not just hiring starting after your approval on this. We use them as an owner's rep to help us for several weeks prior to the approval of the motion from last month. So it's more than just this time frame going forward. But the services that we're using them for specifically are to address some contractual issues, to address the recovery schedule in order to address the delays that have occurred and how we're going to get back on track. Their experience in the construction market and with field construction projects goes well beyond our capability to negotiate with some pretty savvy and experienced contractors. So to ensure that we are protecting the board, the administration, in the scope of the agreement, as well as making sure that we're getting done on time, are the main reasons, and documenting our conversations at construction meetings, so that in the instance there are other issues that occur, we have the proper documentation to defend the district.
And does Fidavia today feel that their involvement gives us a reasonably high level of assurance that the fields will be ready for the fall practice sessions?
Thank you.
To answer that question, we believe that they've been helpful in getting us to where we are now. We're seeing substantial work being done on the auxiliary field and stadium field. We were successful in working with Montgomery County Conservation District. They intervened, and because of the things that they know regarding the needs and the priorities of the Conservation District, we're able to address scheduling issues and have multiple phases running simultaneously, compared to where we were prior to their arrival, where we were still sitting in the initial first phase doing the large stormwater basin. So we believe that their impact is certainly felt in the progress that we're making today.
But they've made no statement about when this field project completion date is what they expect?
We recently had a recovery schedule meeting, and we are prepared to bring forward to the board that information. I'm not prepared to do that this evening. There's a couple pieces that we got to have clarification on, and once we're able to do that, we can let you know whether or not we're still on schedule or how far or how early we're able to get some things adjusted in order to meet the needs of our students for play starting August 17th, which is the fall, start of the fall schedule. I said earlier that I also will be putting that schedule in a publication of my second notice so that the public is aware of that as well. So within 2 weeks, the public will have that information. They don't need to wait for a particular board meeting to hear that, because all along we've been trying to keep in contact with our major sports organizations and those people that have been contributors to this project outside of the public funds that are being used, so that they know exactly where we're at.
Okay. Additional questions or comments? Okay. Seeing none, we have a motion and a second to approve the attached professional services agreement, construction management services with Vidavia Inc. in the amount of $2,000 per week from June 2nd to September 30th. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Unanimous. Moving on to item 9.9, the MAO agreement. I will ask for a motion to approve the attached Methacton Administrative Organization Agreement extension until September 30th, 2017. Is there a motion? Mr. Roth? Yes. I'll get that to you, Mr. Phillips. Is there a second? Mr. Roth? Discussion?
I think it would be appropriate if I could just go over some of the major issues. They're okay. All right, thanks. The extension agreement was attached to the agenda, so I'm not going to read verbatim, but I'm going to touch on the major components and try to give a little bit of history and understanding to what we have here before you. Basically, I will read this part. Basically, the memorandum of understanding is between the Board of School Directors of the Methacton School District and the Methacton Administrative Organization. Just for clarity's sake and for the public, the administrative MAO is not a unionized or what's considered a bargaining unit. So the conversations that we'll have at the table here and the conversations that the board chooses or not to choose to have with the administrative group isn't bound by a similar teacher negotiations or Teamster negotiations or other unionized groups. So just to be clear, this is an agreement that, if approved here this evening, will be enforced starting the dates so identified on the agreement. So essentially, the modification really is a concept to take the existing agreement for the Methacton Administrative Organization and extend it to September 30th, 2017. In that agreement, it addresses one particular area. When we talked about the things that are of importance to both sides moving an agreement forward, because it does expire June 30th, 2015, we felt that the compensation area was the most critical piece that both sides wanted to adjust. And so the pieces that are listed here, salary range determination, under 2B, salary range determination is a concept that's identified here that establishes reasonable salary ranges for any new hires or administrative hires under this agreement. And it also states that when necessary, the superintendent reserves the right to supersede the salary range. The salary range, in summary, is based upon the defined 2014-15 Montgomery County Intermediate Unit Salary and Benefits Report. That is a report that's issued by the Intermediate Unit annually that collects information about all Montgomery County schools, similar to what's done in other
intermediate units for their districts. We are using that as a baseline for determining the starting salaries during the term of this modification extension agreement. Item 2C addresses salary adjustments. Now, the salary adjustments are identified in here. There was a statement earlier about the amount of money identified for salary adjustments, but the correct amount is $109,753.25. That number is derived from the list of 11 administrative positions who were started below the county average as part of the way the starting salary was determined in the existing agreement, or we'll call it in the current agreement of Mayo. So it was felt by both sides that in order to adjust the way the annual compensation is determined, because the annual compensation was a method that not many of us are privy to be able to calculate. But I will ask Mr. Whiteleather if you could just summarize the way that those calculations were once done, so that people understand that.
Sure. Basically, what would happen is an administrator would be brought in at 80% of the county average. They would progress up to the county average over a 5-year period. Basically, what would happen is that the individual relative to the county average would be adjusted based on evaluation, and then secondly adjusted based on their progression to county average. As Dr. Zerbe did talk about, it was a rather involved calculation because there was a set amount established for increases for each one of the positions. Alongside of that was the adjustment beyond that to progress that individual through the 5 years up to the maximum or the county average applicable for that position. What would then happen once the person reached county average, they'd actually be pulled back as far as evaluation raises go, simply as a mechanism to keep the individual at the county average. So there was a kind of a multi-pronged approach as far as the calculation would go for each one of the administrators.
Thank you. And what that ended up doing is it created a disincentive for our administrators to go above and beyond their known performance rate. I mean, at the end of the day, our concern was just that. We wanted to make sure that we had a compensation system that was fair, that was equitable, and that provided an incentive for all of our administrators to do better. That's the salary adjustment part of it. And then the annual compensation under 2D was basically identified as a way to determine the annual compensation, and it was based on the Methacton School District Administrator Appraisal Form. Members of the group will be listed, and there's a table in the attached agreement where the rating and compensation schedule is listed for unsatisfactory at 0%, meets expectations with needs at 1.5%, meets expectations at 2%, and exceeds expectations at 3%. And then there's listings of how that will be calculated. And that summarizes the MAO agreement. And I do want to thank the representatives of MAO and members of the HR committee for their work on this matter.
Questions or comments on the MAO agreement?
Yeah, I'd like to comment on that. For some time, the Mayo agreement has been basically something very hard to understand, and not only for administrators, but for board members alike. The primary goal of this was to create a system in which the Mayo members of the Act 93 group would be brought up to county average, okay? And in doing so, reach that point, and then it's done. The annual compensation calculations will kick in with this MOU and make it a lot easier for us not only to evaluate our administrators, but also for the administrators themselves to exceed their expectations. We want to see, it'd be wonderful if we could see every administrator exceeding expectations, doing things outside the box, doing things that we never even thought about before. It was brought up about bringing this school district into excelling beyond whatever we could even dream of. And in order to do that, you have to have an incentive for people to work and people to think and do things that are more than just doing your job. So that was part of the goals of this. I feel strongly that it is very good for the school district to do this. It solves a major problem in the contract, in the agreement that was been sitting there for years. And it took me years to figure out how the old system works with the quintiles and moving up and down and getting adjustments. But I feel strongly that this is a very good agreement for the administrators and for the school district. Thank you.
Thank you. Additional questions or comments? Mr. Pelicano.
I mean, the only comment, I echo what Herb said, but in the end here, this makes this a performance-based process, and that's what we want.
Right. If there's nothing else, we have a motion and a second to approve the attached MAO agreement extension to September 30th, 2017. So I'll ask for a vote. All those in favor? Opposed? Jim, you there?
Hello.
Mr. Phillips? Jim, you there?
Yes. Yes.
Okay, I'm going to take the first yes as you're there, and the second yes is that you're voting aye. All right.
Very good. Thank you.
Thank you. Unanimous. Item 9.10, ESCO project. So can I have a motion to approve the attached ESCO project contract with Schneider Electric Buildings of Americas? Hold on, all right, so wait a second. Before we do that, I'm going to ask for a motion to approve, 1, the project contract, and then 2, the project financing with Bank of America. You still want to make that motion?
Yeah, make them. I have no problem making them together.
Okay, there's a motion for Mr. Phillips. Is there a second? Mrs. Shackelford. Discussion. Questions or comments, Mr. McFarland?
Just a couple of clarifications, if I may. Out of the contract that was included, 2.3 mentions a customer will make payment to ESCO for expenses incurred to date and project mobilization expenses. I assume those are part of the contract award. They're not in addition to it?
That's correct.
Okay.
That's correct.
Thank you. The pass agreement is no charge in the first year, but there is no cost stated in the contract for what the cost of that would be in years forward. Is there a number for that?
I can defer. There's no cost for the pass going forward. We have 2 representatives here from Schneider Electric.
No, I understand. The first year, it clearly states there is no cost.
And there's no cost going forward from that.
Okay. I just quickly mention, the school's responsible for permits and fees, and is this going to include Worcester's ordinances in any way?
Yeah, the contract as stated is inclusive of those charges that would be applicable to the project. So the financing amount that you have before you, the project scope that you have before you is reflective of those costs, inclusive.
Okay, it isn't the costs that I was asking, though. It's the phrase that says, "Customer shall secure and pay for necessary approvals, easements, assessments, and charges required any energy solutions." So I'm just asking, is the Township of Worcester going to give us any issues with those approvals?
It's difficult to say without, knowing exactly what it would be as we would go to them through the project, but, I wouldn't be able to answer that question without, actually having to go to the township and seeing and experiencing whether or not there would be any issues with securing permits or otherwise.
Okay, and just again, sorry to go back to the pass agreement, but the language says, automatically renew for a period of 1 year whereby the customer can maintain current service or upgrade the level of service as provided in Schedule B. But you're saying that even under that phrase, there is no cost.
Could you, please?
Yeah, Larry Myers with Schneider Electric. Thank you for the opportunity. Let me just clarify that for you. The way the services are set up, that's standard language that we have for what we call performance assurance and support services. In this case, because there's a Phase 2 that's potential to follow behind this, there's no expected additional services to carry into years 2, 3, 4, and beyond. That at that time, when we look at Phase 2, that the past services would be developed at that point. So there is the past services included in the project provide warranty service and follow-up visits and maintenance of utility bills for the buildings affected for the one-year period. At that point, we would expect that we'd be into Phase 2 by that time.
Okay, thank you. So this language and contract covers Phase 1. Phase 2 would have an additional...
And it's kind of like boilerplate language that we have for our past services. Yeah.
Okay. Other question? Ms. Hackett?
Yes. Under date of commencement and substantial completion, it says that the work will be substantially completed within 180 days from the date of commencement, the contract time, but I couldn't find the contract date, the original contract date. I assume it's very soon. But 180 days is 6 months from now, and I thought we had hoped to get most of this work done over the summer. Is that not correct?
We're obviously working as quickly as possible post, hopefully, your approval this evening. Basically, any type of construction that would occur, or retrofitting that would occur once school would start, would be done on a second shift. There would be no interruption at all to the education. Any room lighting retrofits would be completed. Room would be put back exactly as is for the next instructional day. But in terms of the scope of work as we have it, while it would obviously be much more prudent to get everything done over the summer, just based on the size of the project, the equipment that needs to be ordered, and so forth, the expectation to get that completed over the summer, based upon the scope of what you're having before you for approval this evening, is such that it's going to require us to go further into the school year. But obviously, the most important thing, and as we confirmed with Schneider, is that this is their bread and butter as far as ensuring that there's no disruption to educational in the Methacton School District as a result of any of the work they're completing.
Thank you.
Additional questions or comments?
I do have a question. I know at the property meeting, okay, we went over in full on what it was that they're going to do. When it says energy savings, it would be nice if we can have everybody understand what those energy savings entail, so we can just review that just a little bit.
We want to have Larry just speak to that?
Basically, this ESCO project is a program administrated under the state. Basically, what you do is you improve various HVAC, lighting, mechanical systems that may be inefficient. Say you have an air conditioning unit in your house that you bought 20 years ago. An air conditioning unit today would have a much higher efficiency rating. So by purchasing that new air conditioner and installing that in your house, your utility costs would go down. Thereby, you're using, in this case, you're using the savings associated with running a more efficient air conditioner to pay for that purchase. So the way this program works is that we would secure funding through a lease to pay for the initial upgrades, and then the savings associated with the more energy efficient lighting or mechanical systems would then be used to pay back that borrowing over the prescribed period of time. The program is set up that it has to pay for itself. So Schneider, when they do their evaluation and they do their detailed energy audit, they basically come back to their client and say, here's what we have as our established baseline of savings. Those savings have to pay for the project. If there is a short in the savings, Schneider would have to cut a check back to the school district for that difference. So it really operates in a way that would not be a net loss to the school district. It would actually be for us a way to address Obviously, what has been discussed numerous times, the amount of capital and infrastructure needs across the organization at basically a cost-neutral equation to us.
The other thing is too that the property committee, we voted, I guess, or went towards the LED lighting. And we were also going to be able to get some grant money, right, from Philadelphia Electric. So to help offset that. So I just wanted to pass that along.
Thank you. Additional questions or comments? Okay, seeing none, we have a motion and a second to approve the ESCO project as attached in the amount of $2,428,935 and the ESCO project financing with Bank of America at a term of 16 and a half years at an interest rate of 2.49%. Seeing no other questions or comments, I'll ask for a vote. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Unanimous? And that concludes our fiscal items. Moving on to item number 10, personnel items. Mr. Harney.
Yes, this evening we have 4 professional resignations for your approval. We have 1 classified resignation for your approval. 6 professional employment hires this evening for your approval. We have 5 employment temporary summer student helpers for your approval this evening. We have 2 uncompensated leave professionals, 2 uncompensated leave classifieds. We have 4 supplemental contracts for your approval this evening. We have 1 list of our extended school year instructors for your approval. We have the attached list of volunteers for your approval this evening. We also have the attached list of community education instructors and 11 advisements.
Okay, I'm assuming that is there anything that anybody wants to take separately? Mr. Pellicano. 10.15. Okay. Anything else that folks want to take separately? Okay, then I'll ask for a motion to approve the personnel items as presented with the exception of 10.15. Is there a motion? Ms. Woodring, is there a second? Ms. Hackett, any discussion? Discussion?
Yes, Bob, can you address the professional vacancies, the first 4? Can you mention whether they're going to be filled?
Absolutely. Let's look at the first one, too. That's a revision. Robin had already retired, but we found out that she was going to be taking on some work for us on our ESY program, so her retirement date was revised. We're in the interview process with both with all of those, the English position, the Skyview counselor position. We actually had interviews today for internal candidates. When a decision is made beyond that, if we will go external, we will post that. And we also are in the interview process for a special education instructor at Audubon.
Thank you.
Thank you. Other questions or comments? All right, seeing none, we have a motion and a second. Motion by Ms. Woodring, second by Ms. Hackett. Seeing no other discussion, all those in favor, say aye, or signify with aye. Opposed? All right, unanimous, 9-0. And then item 10.15, community education. Can I have a motion to approve the attached list of community education instructors for the summer of 2015? Ms. Hackett, is there a second? Mr. you wanted to make that motion?
Well, no, I want to talk as well.
All right, second by Mr. Pellicano. Discussion, Mr. Pellicano?
I just wanted to add one thing. First of all, I know Ms. Lynch mentioned the very great work and the programs that are done this summer, which is awesome. And I know we do programs throughout the year at different times, I think maybe in the fall or spring or what have you. I just would like to ask Mr. Whiteleather if we could, just to make sure, we just take a look at those. I know they're great programs and everything for the community. I certainly want to continue them, but just from a fee perspective, do we kind of know where we are with respect to break even? I mean, that should always try and be a goal. I know it may not always be possible because we want to put these great programs on, but as close as possible to try and get there if that's reasonable.
Yeah, absolutely. And Angela and I have worked closely on establishing what we would see as a break-even minimum as far as participation in these programs. And if there is not, we obviously need to make that decision as to whether or not a certain program would need to continue, or a discussion would need to take place with the instructor, because ultimately, the Methacton School District does not want to lose money on offering these programs. So we've established very clear expectations with all of the educators, whether they're in-house or a contracted vendor, letting them know that these are the minimum thresholds you have to meet in order for this program to proceed. So that has been a really emphasized item for this year and moving forward as well.
Any other discussion? Okay, seeing none. All those in favor of the approval of the attached list of community education instructors for the summer of 2015?
Aye.
Opposed? Unanimous. Thank you. That concludes our personnel items. Moving on to curriculum and programs, Ms. Katona.
Okay, there are 3 items for consideration this evening. The first is the adoption of the math program materials for grades 5 and 6. It would be My Math from McGraw-Hill. For grade 5, the total cost is $11,103.40. And for 6th grade, it is the Glencoe Math, again from the same publisher, for a total cost of $9,671.20. These have been on display for the past month, and we have not received any questions about the programs. 11.2 is the approval of the K-4 curriculum. It is a K-4 math curriculum. This was presented, as Mrs. Hackett mentioned, at our Education Committee meeting for board approval. It is a summary of the standards, the big ideas, key concepts, and district-supported resources across K to 4. This is the first among what will become many curricula that you will be asked to approve over the next several months. And we are starting with this one because it is complete for the last year or so. And then the MCIU classroom for pre-K counts to approve the use of one classroom at Eagleville Elementary to support the IU's efforts if they do, if they are in fact awarded the grant by PDE. And again, MCIU will assume all costs for this program.
Is everyone okay taking these all together?
I'd like to take 11.3 separately.
Okay. Can I have a motion to approve 11.1 and 11.2 as presented? Mrs. Barone, is there a second? Mrs. Shackelford? Any discussion on those 2 items? Okay, seeing none. All those in favor?
Aye.
So enthusiastic. Opposed? Unanimous. Item 11.3, I'll ask for a motion to approve the use of one classroom at Eagleville to be used as a pre-K counts classroom for 2015-16 school year. Classroom use contingent on the IU's grant approval by Pennsylvania Department of Education, and they will assume all costs, including the instructional aids and curricular materials, assuming that that grant is in fact approved. Mr. Pellicano, second. Ms. Barone, any discussion? Ms. Hackett?
Yes, I think that we should consider asking the administration if they would like to do more than one classroom and giving them the authority to do more than one classroom should the opportunity present itself.
Well, we could amend the motion to include that approval, that they wouldn't have to come back to us for
That's right.
for approval. We could do that. It's fine.
Okay.
We could simply say one or more classrooms
Well,
based on what they are able to
it's also
grant.
specific to Eagleville, and should we just talk about elementary schools?
We could do that. We could amend the motion to say that we give approval of at least one classroom, at least one elementary school classroom to be used for pre-K counts, contingent upon grant approval to the IU, and then you guys could have direction to go do more. You know, if everything worked, then just let us know.
That'd be great.
Okay. You willing to amend the motion? Willing to amend the second, Kathleen?
Yes.
Okay, so the motion, as stated now, is to approve the use of at least one classroom, let me say this again, to approve the use of at least one elementary school classroom to be used as a pre-K counts classroom for the 2015-16 school year. Classroom use will be still contingent on the IU's grant approval, and they will assume all costs. Any discussion? Okay, seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Unanimous? And that concludes curriculum. Moving on to item number 12, policy. Dr. Zerbe.
Ms. Haggett, thank you for that recommendation, the modification. On number 12, policy, we have 5 policies, as Ms. Woodring mentioned earlier in her report, up for first reading. We have the student handbooks at all 4 levels up for first reading, and 12.3, we have second reading of 11 policies for your approval this evening.
Okay, so no action on 12.1 or 12.2. Can I have a motion to approve item 12.3, the 11 policies listed under second reading as presented? Motion by Ms. Woodring. Is there a second? Ms. Barone? Any discussion?
Just one, if I could divert briefly to 12.1 and 819, the suicide awareness, that new draft. I just wanted to clarify there were very minor changes made there. This is a pretty much state language that's being used, and we only clarified certain descriptions of personnel involvement rather than changing the wording of the actual policy.
That is correct.
Thank you.
Okay, any comments on the ones we're going to vote on? Okay, seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Unanimous? And that concludes policy. Moving on to item 13, other. Dr. Zerbe, why don't you do gifts and donations first, so we can vote on that, and then move on to administrative reorganization.
As listed, there are 3 gifts and donations. The first one is to accept a gift as a percussion kit from Elizabeth Kamenetz from Audubon Elementary School in a value of $150. The second one is to accept a gift of $520 from the Audubon Women's Club for the backpack program at Skyview Upper Elementary, Audubon Elementary, Eagleville Elementary, and Woodland Elementary schools. And the last, I'd like to introduce a member of our band boosters to come forward, Jim.
Thank you, Dr. Zerbe. My name is James Pomp. I'm co-vice president of the Methacton Music Boosters. And on behalf of the Methacton Music Boosters, I'm pleased to present a check for the purchase of a trailer for use by the marching band. The funds to purchase the trailer were the result of several years' worth of fundraising by the Music Boosters, parents, students, and alumni. I'd like to thank the school board and Dr. Zerbe for your ongoing support for the music program in Methacton. Thank you.
Thank you for your donation. Mr. Prop, Jim, the question is this new, or did we already have one? And maybe, with your donation, you could answer that, I'm sure.
Would love to speak about this. In the past, we've had the use of a box truck that was school district owned. So this has been a long time wish of the marching band to have a trailer for our own use. So we finally put together enough funds to purchase the trailer. And this will meet a huge need of being able to move equipment around from the school to the competitions and to the football games that we march in.
Jim, is it not from our discussions that it's not just a trailer that will do what you just said, but it also will represent Methacton in its presentation along the highway, in our parking lots, and at stadiums all across the Commonwealth?
Yes, it will do all those things. Yes, it was our intention to put our signature on the side, Methacton Warrior Marching Band, and the actual color of the trailer is green, and it will have the wording on the side, and it will proudly represent the marching band and Methacton School District.
Thank you so much for your generous donation.
Thank you, we appreciate it. So since Dr. Zerbe took the check, we better approve the acceptance of the check. Okay, so can I have a motion to approve gifts and donations as presented, including the incredibly generous gift from the Music Boosters Club?
Christian?
Yes.
Oh,
you want to?
I'm the president of the Audubon Women's Club, so I don't think I should vote on it.
You can abstain if you want.
I would think I should abstain.
But we'll take your money and we'll say thank you, because that's an incredibly important program that's changing a lot of lives, and so you and the rest of the Audubon Women's Club should really be thanked for that as well, so thank you. Okay. I guess Elizabeth isn't here. That'd be nice. We should clap for her, though, too. Okay, so we have a motion. Wait, we need a motion and a second to approve gifts and donations as presented. So can I have a motion to, Ms. Hackett, is there a second? Ms. Woodring? Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor, raise your hand, say aye, whatever you want to do.
Aye.
Against? Abstentions? Okay, 8-0 with one abstention, and the abstention is for an incredibly good reason. Moving on to 13.2, administrative reorganization. Dr. Zerbe.
I'd like to, make a couple comments and certainly present my recommendation on the 3 items that are listed under 3.2. For some time, I've had conversations with members of the board regarding my concern with central administrative structures, limited manpower on the educational side of our organization. While the district continues to perform at a high level, we must ensure that we address our instructional programs and services appropriately today and well into the future. To this end, I am recommending to the board that we establish one new administrative Act 93 position to assist me with the education curriculum leadership of the district. While other districts our size in Montgomery County have multiple administrative director positions focused on curriculum and instruction, we have one. Similarly, in addition to multiple education curriculum director positions of other districts, 15 of the 19 Montgomery County districts have another level of central administration between the superintendent and program directors. These positions assist the superintendent as well as assist program directors and principals. As such, I am recommending to the board for their approval this evening the establishment of a chief program officer position. The chief program officer will be positioned at a level between the superintendent and the program directors on the organizational chart. The chief program officer will be responsible for leading, assisting, and supervising the curriculum and instruction and pupil services programs of the district. This position will work cooperatively with all existing directors to support and supervise building principals. Your approval this evening will allow the curriculum and instruction focused position to then be advertised and filled as part of our normal hiring processes. Due to the lack of administrative support on the educational side of our organization, having just one compared to many districts having multiple, I believe that we will continue to struggle to develop beyond our current program of offerings and services without that help. While our directors continue to do an outstanding job, my belief is that they can't do it alone. The Chief Program Officer will be responsible for leading a path for innovative program development and implementation in the district. Innovative program implementation like STEM, science, technology, engineering, and mathematics, and other yet-to-be-determined opportunities for our students can be planned, implemented, and institutionalized for the benefit of our students, our community, and our economy. Likewise, this position will lead our career planning, student success program, and counseling program while directly assisting me with major initiatives of the district so that I may direct my efforts to matters of the board, district performance, policy, finance, strategic planning, fundraising, partnerships, communications, and the Education Foundation. In addition to the Chief Program Officer position, a similar level position between the superintendent and program directors is recommended and will be titled Chief Financial Officer, for which I am recommending that the current Director of Business Services, Mr. Stuart Whiteleather, be appointed to that position. With the approval of this recommendation, I will then recommend that the board approve the elimination of the Director of Business Services position effective July 1, 2015. The Chief Financial Officer will assume the Director of Business Services responsibilities, along with some additional duties supporting and supervising the operations side of the district, similar to the Chief Program Officer or Chief Program Officer supervising the educational side. And the Chief Financial Officer will also supervise things including facilities and technology services that are currently under my supervision. With your approval this evening, I will then proceed with preparing detailed job descriptions for review by the HR committee and for your future approval by the board, and will work with the policy committee on the organizational chart for future approval as well. Lastly, as part of this reorganization, I will be recommending to the board for approval in the future to fill the currently unfilled secretarial position to support the two newly created positions. In all, these recommendations have been accounted for in the budget as it was approved in May as an estimated cost of $270,323, of which the new Chief Program Officer, inclusive of benefits, is estimated at $194,000 total. These proposed changes shall address our organizational needs by deliberately emphasizing our commitment to strengthening our educational programs and services, while providing a balanced focus to increasing our ability to get things done effectively and efficiently. I ask for your approval on my recommendations this evening. Attached to the agenda were the breakouts of the three positions that were spoken of in my presentation, and therefore your review as well.
Thank you, Dr. Zerbe. So there are three items under 13.2 that would make up the entirety of Dr. Zerbe's recommendation. Do you want to take each one individually, or do you want to take them all at once? What's your pleasure?
I think we can take them all at once.
So is there, so then I'll ask for a motion to approve the establishment of two MAO positions, the Chief Financial Officer and Chief Program Officer, effective June 25th. To approve the employment modification extension agreement for Stuart Whiteleather as Chief Financial Officer with a starting salary of $160,000 for a term commencing on July 1, 2015 and ending June 30th, 2020. And the elimination of the position of Director of Business Services effective July 1st, 2015. Is there a motion? Ms. Hackett, is there a second? I'll give it to Jim. Okay, discussion. Mr. Pellicano?
Dr. Zerbe, could you, I guess, comment on, our overall level of administrators and kind of where you see Ms. Acton stand versus our peers?
I can. Just give me a minute to move to a page that I have. Methacton School District, under the Act 93 Administrative Agreement, currently has 27 Act 93 administrators. That is approximately a little less than 0.05% of compared to our student population. Similarly to other districts that have similar populations, student populations, without naming the name specifically, there's a district that has about 4,500 students, and a district that has 4,700 students, which has as administrators of 46. We have a district of 4,700 students that have 28 Act 93 administrators. We have some districts that are about twice our size that have somewhere in the neighborhood of 74 administrators. And so, on average, the administrative makeup against the student population is about 0.7%, where Methacton is about 0.5%. And will continue to be there with the addition of this one particular program, chief program officer.
Thanks. Additional questions or comments, Ms. Barone?
So this new chief program officer position, that position will be, part of the criteria of that position will be that they have an assistant superintendent certification?
That is going to be part of the job description that we need to work through with the HR committee, but certainly that is the preferred certification for that position in my eyes, and that would be the one that I'll be recommending to the HR committee, but that's again for the board's approval once it comes before you.
So wait a minute, so what we're proving today is not going to be, you're basically saying that we have to take it to the HR, and what if the HR committee says that they don't need that certification?
Well, it still has to get approved by the board.
So then we just go through a second vote again, is what you're saying?
Well, I mean, the HR committee could say, we don't recommend that, and then...
I mean, it's going to be my, it's going to be my,
It'll be your recommendation.
my recommendation that they will need that certificate. It's called a letter of eligibility.
Okay, I just want to make sure that that's in it.
But I'm not trying to split hairs, so I just want you to know that the job description has to be approved, and I need to take it through HR. There may be different opinions getting to that, and it'll be before the board for the final approval.
I think the HR committee would be in favor of that, as a member of it.
Yeah, I think so.
Additional, Mr. McFarland?
So just to be clear, then, we're being asked to approve the process by which we would establish job descriptions and organizational charts that would reflect this new arrangement, rather than approving what is now a completed task, but rather we are going to approve going into the HR committee and working with them to develop job descriptions, and as part of that job description, then part of the organizational chart, and that's then going to come back to the board before we go forward, is that right?
The organizational chart and the job descriptions should become before the board before we advertise for the position. That is correct.
Okay, so if for some reason the board felt that the direction this was taking was not appropriate, we could always vote no then?
I imagine so.
I'm sorry, I just wanted to additionally comment. I'm not opposed to the concept of this. I really support investment in professional people on the education side of the district, and I think that's very valuable, and I think Stuart has done a very good job with respect to helping the board arrive at a cleaner understanding of the operation of the budget and the opportunities going forward. So I don't want to be misunderstood in that I'm opposed to the directional part of this, but the process is something that I think we need to do more work on before I would finally be confident in it.
Yeah, and I think we have time. I think what we do is we approve that that position is available to the superintendent. The superintendent then has to go and work through policy to update the organizational chart, and then work through HR to develop the job description, and then put a job posting together, and once all that's been approved by the board, hire someone that the board would interview as part of the process. So I think it's the appropriate step is to say, yes, you can go and spend X dollars on this position, and then work through the committee process to get those other things lined out before we bring somebody in for interviews. Ms. Woodring?
Yeah, having had that discussion, is there a preferred time that this should get out there to get the best candidate pool?
Yeah, it's a good point. I mean, I assume that the desire is as soon as possible, but I think Ms. Woodring's point is, will we lose out on people because there's a hiring season?
Certainly, the issue will be that if school starts before we have a candidate that is confirmed by the board, it's likely that they will hold a current position conceivably in another district, which would potentially delay their ability to start immediately, because typically professionals are held to a 60-day contract minimum before dismissal. So that could be an issue, but again, we need to aggressively go after people that we feel are appropriate for the position to assist us in the manner that I've explained.
Cleaner Third, do you have a comment?
Yes. I don't know.
Okay. Ms. Hackett.
We talked about the job description for the Chief Program Officer, but there will be a new job description for the Chief Financial Officer as well.
Both job descriptions, that's correct.
Further discussion? Okay. Hearing none, we have a motion and a second to approve items 1, 2, and 3 as part of 13.2, the administrative reorganization. Seeing no other discussion, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Unanimous? Thank you. That concludes our voting items for this evening. Item 14, dates for board members' calendars. I ask the board just please note the various committee meetings and the July and August Board of School Directors meetings as listed. Item 15, old business. Is there any old business to come before the board?
Yes. I just want to make a clarification on last month's meeting when we had the discussion about the moving of the rock. That was a very lively conversation that everybody had, and I know that I voted against a couple items because of that question. But I'd like to make it clear to everybody that that was clarified, that the information that we gave at our meeting was not correct. The information that is correct is that those rocks will not be under the softball field. They're going to be next to the softball fields. They're not going to be under the fields like we had said at our meeting. So I just want to make sure that that was a miscommunication that was out there, and while I was very adamant that that not happen, that is why I voted for Fidavia today, because that was cleared up, and those rocks will not be under any softball fields.
And good point, because Fidavia, with their interjection into the process, we were able to adjust where those materials were to be deposited. So they did help us with that. So good point.
Thank you. Any other old business to come before the board? Any new business to come before the board?
One thing.
Go ahead.
Yeah, being that we're doing a zero tax increase this year, can we put an area on our tax bill that people can pay additional taxes if they feel that they need to give us more money?
I think we'd have to talk to Stuart shaking his head violently.
Well, there's people that don't think we should be doing 0% or cutting taxes, and I want to give them the opportunity to write an extra check.
Yeah, they should definitely cut an extra check if they think that way. But I think it's a standard form that Kristen Deal uses, so I don't think it's optional.
Yeah, or even to slip a donation, slip in there for a donation. So that's all.
Point taken. Okay, any other new business to come before the board? Okay, courtesy of the floor. Ms. Allback? Again, I'll remind folks to keep it to 3 minutes per board policy. If you have questions, you can submit them to Angela. We'll get them posted on the website if we can't answer them right here.
Katie Alaba, Eagleville. I appreciate the explanation about hiring, the new hire, and Mr. Whiteleather. But I've sat in this room for 9 years and heard previous school boards use other school districts as an example why they're going to do things. And at this point in my life, I'm really tired of hearing what other school districts are doing, because I'm not paying my taxes in other school districts. Mr. Roth alluded to the fact you have to hire the best and brightest and give them incentives to stay in their job. No, you don't. I've worked in business. I've been there. At this point in this country, the incentive is you have a job. Now, we're hiring what sounds like a superintendent. Why are we hiring all these people and giving raises when our enrollment is dropping? What is the work that they're doing? I mean, this is an honest question. I mean, I've heard one of the reasons we need Skyview is because Norristown put in a 5-6 building, and before Skyview even had the shovel in the dirt, their 5-6 was not working. Then I heard we needed, a turf field because other schools had it. I see a lot of schools in the state now are reverting back to grass because we're at least 10, 15 years behind other schools. I mean, these are facts. So one of the justifications to do this is because other school districts, that's all well and good. I do know, like Upper Marion and Phoenixville, their enrollments are going up. Ours aren't. And your job description, I understand it, but it sounds like an assistant superintendent to me. We needed an assistant superintendent when Dr. Martin retired. And nobody thought it was a good idea. And I don't know, I haven't checked, but I think we might be the only school district that does not have an assistant. That would be like having a governor without a lieutenant governor or a president without a vice president. If Dr. Zerby was so inclined to take a vacation, and a hard-earned vacation, and go away for a couple weeks, we need someone comparable to him to step in. If this person you're hiring, this program director, is an assistant superintendent, please say that. Because a lot of people have said for years, we need one. We've needed one. But I don't understand this spending more money, and I mean, I know we got to get the best and the brightest, and we have to have people that want to come here, and I believe in incentives. I worked at jobs where they gave nice incentives, but you actually had to work to earn those incentives. You didn't get it for showing up. At this point in the economy, having a job is an incentive to show up every day. I mean, I've seen people get raises and do less work. But before you voted and you had a discussion, since a number of people, and I mean, this is a request, since a number of people commented on this item, after the board comments, maybe you need to allow the public to comment after they get the description and see what further questions they have, instead of voting and kind of shutting us out on this. But my only problem is, we're in a problem now where we have dropping enrollment, which is no fault of our own, but we're adding personnel, and we're spending more money. That's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm going to turn the chair over to Vice President Hackett while I...
Diana Kernop, co-MEA president. I have a question, I guess, or a comment about two different things. The chief financial officer position that was created tonight, with all respect to Stuart, I like Stuart, we work on the consortium together. If you're posting the other position after you go to the HR committee and you create the job description, and I don't go to your other committee meetings, did this go to your other committee and do you create a job description and then you posted it, and then Stuart basically applied for it and got it? Or is this a renaming of Stuart to a new position that's being created, but it wasn't posted anywhere?
I think I'm following what you're asking, so if I don't answer in what you're expecting an answer to be, please let me know. What I'm recommending is that basically two positions be created, and then one of the positions to be eliminated, and then I'm recommending the appointment of Mr. Whiteleather to the Chief Financial Officer position. There is no requirement for us to post the position. It's not under similar agreements that may be part of
I thought it was your HR policy to post that.
Yeah, this process is above board. We've had this as a public process.
Okay. My second one is about the Mayo agreement and the county average. And oftentimes Methacton tends to give people who don't have any experience an opportunity to go into management and become an administrator. So they're coming to you if they were in the county average at 0, and they're weighing in at 0 experience. But when you're looking at the county average, you're weighing them and that average is being created with people that might have 35 years of experience, so that the county average is not, I respect it, I'm not saying that it, but you're not comparing apples to apples or oranges to oranges. You may be looking at the county average of a principal where the principal's group has a net of 20 years of experience, and we're moving within 5 years someone here who has no experience to that level. That would be like hiring and I really enjoy working with you, so it's not meant to be a negative with you, Dr. Zerbe, but that would be like you coming to work for Methacton as a new superintendent and looking at the county average, and Abington's superintendent, who makes over $300,000 and gets a $30,000 signing bonus, counting in the average that's pulling all the superintendents up. And so as that county average is used, how is the IU weighing in those other factors would be my question.
Yeah, the answer to that is we are only using the county average as a determiner for the county average of 14-15 for the determiner to bring the entire administrative team to a particular.
But it's been used for a very long time.
It has. That's
10
correct.
years at least.
That's correct. The intent originally was when all the other components to add in annual compensations were designed. It was only designed to address an issue that was under one agreement. It happened to stay in a lot of significant agreements, and what it did was it only allowed our administrators to ever get to county average, and they would always stay there. So it wouldn't give us an opportunity to take and I'm going to use this term, a rock star, and make sure that they are compensated appropriately for making contributions to our students' performance that are beyond anyone's expectations for a particular position. So the process right now, as it's been approved, is for it to bring everybody up over a 2-year period, as it's stated in the agreement. It affects 11 individuals that were bought in at the original sub-county average rate. And then from that point forward, they are using a straight evaluation or performance-based model to deal with their compensations.
But again, as you calculate the county average that you're weighing them against, their experience, you're not comparing every principal that has 1 year experience to come up with the county average. You are comparing the total population of principals and all their years of experience to come to the county average.
And we've been doing that ever since I've gone back through all the agreents that I've known.
Yeah,
So it's not a new concept. It's a concept that's been in.
But isn't it a positive thing that I can have no experience and I can come in and get work toward the county average where those people have significantly more experience? The second thing I would say, and I think that they do, I think our administrators work very hard here.
Thank you for saying that.
Very hard. I'm not negating any monies that they get. I'm questioning the term county average and how it's calculated. The one thing that I've often heard is that Methacton has the ability to pay toward the middle of the county, and you're looking to have rock stars. We have the rock stars, but we also have a district that has taken the philosophy often that we pay toward the middle of the county if we can, because that's where our tax effort was. And how out of kilter will this become if you are paying them at the Lower Marion or the Abington rate when the rest of the organization can't be paid there? Thank you.
Good evening. Pete DiPiano, Audubon. Switching gears a little bit, in light of the other night's presentation with Pell, I was just curious if there's any status update on getting a second opinion with a different company outside of Pell for enrollment projections. I know that was mentioned at the March meeting, and I know Dr. Zerbe had asked for some direction. I was just curious if that's on the table in the future and if that would be voted on or directed by the board.
Were you talking about a second opinion of enrollment?
Outside of the Pell data, yes.
Will there be enrollment work done with the RFP that's going out around the potential realignment? So there would be a study of enrollment at the grade or the class level?
Can I?
Go ahead, please.
On the district website, under the board, Angela, where's it at?
Bid opportunities.
It's under, well, the RFP is under bid opportunities. Where are the answers to the questions?
Under the board section.
Under the board section, questions and answers, okay. There is a comment that is responding to a similar request for a second opinion type of thing. So I'm going to try to read from that and just bear with me. As described here on the district website, an RFP, request for a proposal, was prepared by the redrawing of attendance areas subcommittee and was issued to the market the week of June 15th. The RFP includes requests for several important pieces of information, including reports for 10-year demographic, student age, population projections of the geographic area of the district, 10-year enrollment projections for the district and by school. That's different than what Pell has done. I lost my spot. 5-year enrollment projections by school and grade. That's something we don't currently have. Review and analysis of charter, cyber, private, and parochial schools. Review and analysis of residential developments planned and proposed. And review analysis of immigration, incorporating trends in the local real estate and local economy, among other reports as listed in the RFP. We think that, while the RFP is designed initially to address a potential need for redrawing our boundaries, in order to do that, a firm would need the data that I just mentioned here, and then basically it will allow us to do a comparison with the information that's produced if a firm is hired to do this work, and compare it to Pell.
Okay, I appreciate knowing that that's in the process. That's okay. And then the second, because it seemed like the way it was stated on the stage that it sounded like Pell was going to be the route that you were taking solely. So I'm glad to hear that there's an RFP for a secondary one.
Well, my recommendation was that with no further direction, I was going to use the information to continue moving forward from Pell, because that's all I have. I don't have any, so I can't, my intent is not to stop any efforts from the committees to wait for maybe a report that might take, a month or two to come in. So I just want you to understand why I said what I said.
I understand. And the second question I had is just to clarify too that one of the roles within the committees does include still looking at alternatives. I know there was discussion that was on the slide back in March, and it wasn't. I just want to make sure that's on the webpage as well.
That is a response to a question that's on the website. Okay. So you can, yes.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you.
Michael Ryan, Lower Providence. I'm only here to say thank you to Ms. Hackett. It's nice to hear, you heard what I was saying, the verbiage change under that action item. At least we allow for the possibility, depending on how things come back with the IU, but at least now there's a possibility of being above and beyond one classroom in Eagleville. So I just want to say thank you.
Mm-hmm. You're welcome. There always was a possibility, but it's good to... Okay. All right. Go ahead.
Joe Worson, Lower Providence. You may recall that at Tuesday's meeting, you scolded me for attacking you personally.
I did, and don't do it again.
I'm here to tell you that it doesn't get more personal than my child. You're responsible for ensuring the quality of my child's education, along with every other child in the district, and maintaining a strong foundation for tomorrow's children as well. How many of you have children attending elementary schools in our district?
Past or present?
Currently.
Mine just came out of it.
And mine was just in one, so there you go.
And I've had a child in elementary school in the district.
Okay.
So
I have 2 children in the district.
Great. Not in an elementary school, though.
Not in elementary school.
Come on, get to.
So my point is that it's pretty easy to make a decision that won't personally impact you. And I just want to know that we do hold each and every one of you accountable for the quality of the education in our district and for putting our children first. I was also chastised for political speech, which is an absolute irony, given that we know that politics is a major factor in any decisions that the board faces.
Well, that's your opinion.
And let's make no mistake that given the information that was uncovered through the right to know requests, your agenda is to close a school. And if you would truly be transparent in your dealings with the public, you could earn our trust. But just like tonight with the open positions, the public was given no knowledge of that ahead of time. Once we did have knowledge of it, it was past the point where we could speak on it. If you're just more transparent and willing to communicate and work with the community, instead of making all your decisions behind closed doors, you need to bring back those meetings where you actually discuss the issues openly in front of the public. We really need that. Another thing that we really need is a revised capacity report. The one that was presented by Thompson Associates is deeply flawed. It does not live up to the standards we expect in this district. It's using undesired class sizes, incorporating spaces not fit for instruction, and including modulars that we know don't belong in the count. Until a new capacity report is completed, one that is based on the realities of our schools and educationally sound utilization plans that put our children first, how can you move forward with developing a redistricting plan? How can you do that if you don't know the capacity of your schools to where to put the kids? That's it.
Okay, thank you.
Megan Fitzgerald, Audubon. I just have two quick questions. Is there any discussion about what would happen to the Audubon building if it were to close? Does anybody know? So that would kind of be decided if it were, once it were to close?
If it were to close, then we would have to make a decision, but no decision's been made to close any school, so.
Okay.
The most appropriate part for that discussion would, in the committee structure, would be at the finance group, but we're not anywhere near that particular, when I say finance group, not the committee of the board, but the committee of the consolidation group. But we're nowhere near that stage of the process, because we agree, we have an RFP out. We agree that the next step for the enrollment capacity and education committee is to now look at capacity, and we need to, ask questions related to that report.
Okay, yeah, that's great, because in the 80s when it was closed, it's terrific that they held on to it, because when the enrollment increased, they were just able to kind of refurbish it and open it again. So I was just curious about that. And my other question is there any plans for to do walkthroughs of the 5 elementary schools just to see what the capacity is, if any of the board members
You mean board members walking through?
Yes, sort of visit the schools to see.
Board members are into school all the time. We actually, to the extent that we don't disrupt classes, but board members get tours of all the schools all the time.
Okay, just to get an idea of how the capacity is used and how the classes are laid out and everything. I just was curious. Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Diana Kernop, co-MEA president. I have another question about the Mayo agreement. Sorry.
That's okay. I got you on timer.
This is an extension, so therefore probably the provisions that were in the other agreement have remained in place. So is it safe to assume that the contribution to, the employer contribution to their 403B plans remains in place?
Yes.
And it would be safe to assume that the money that they're given, I believe it's, the last figure I saw was $1,000 toward medical, is still in place?
Yes.
So that while at face value, you're looking at bringing them to the county average, and you're looking at maybe a 2% raise, that in effect, with those other factors, their raise is higher than 2%. If I'm giving you money into your 403B account as the employer, and I'm giving you $1,000 toward medical, and I'm giving you a raise at approximately 2%,
you really are getting more than 2%. Am I correct?
Well, you could use that argument with any.
Thank you, I got my answer. Thank you.
$1,000 isn't any increase.
It's a contribution.
You get 2%, you get 2%. That's not contribution.
Hi, Karen Gormley, Laura Providence. I wasn't planning on coming up and asking any questions, but we had a meeting with Mr. Nascimento and Dr. Zerbe back in February or March, I believe, with the home and schools from Arrowhead and Audubon. And at that time, we asked you if you have been in the schools and walked around and seen how the classrooms are used, and you said no. So now you're saying you guys are there all the time, and you...
I said board members are there all the time on tours.
Board members, right, which are you guys, right?
So
Do you walk around the school all the time when there's children there?
Yes.
And you see how the schools are used?
Yep,
Okay, and the classrooms are used and
yep.
okay, just asking, because I'm there all the
Many
time. I volunteer
Many years.
all the time, and I have not seen it, so
Well, you
just
might not have
clarifying.
been there when I've been there.
Okay, just
Okay.
asking, just clarifying.
All right. Thanks. Additional courtesy of the floor? Mr. Brickland?
Joe Bickelman, Audubon. I have a couple items on my list. I'm going to start with the one where I have an asterisk aside of it. It was talked about the disbursements for the field construction project not being approved by the board. I think, I don't know if the solicitor can answer this or not, but I think all the disbursements of district cash has to be approved by the board, and the public needs to see those disbursements. So is that true, that the public's not going to see the checks?
I don't think that was what was said. I think it was
No, a report was going to be shared from the superintendent to the board, so...
And to the public, once it's...
And to the public.
Once it's ready, yeah.
So we'll see a bills for approval list for the field construction projects. Okay, I misunderstood that then. Talking about Mr. Whiteleather's salary, I heard that he's going to be in charge of technology and buildings and grounds. And I just want to say that the transportation people were outsourced, so there's no transportation and there's no food service. And Mr. Whiteleather has at his disposal an ex-Daniel Boone business manager working as his assistant, and he has a new software package. So he lost 2 duties, transportation, food service, supervision, which I think he might have had, and he's gaining 2. Building and grounds and technology. So I don't know the reason behind the salary increase. And if he signed a 5-year contract in 12 and 13, I would think, you know, Deshaun Jackson, he used to play for the Eagles, but he caught a bunch of passes one year and he wanted to renegotiate his contract. He's in Washington now. Then there was a comparison of other school districts and other administrators, and the number of other administrators. I know a school district of about 4,600 kids that has 46 or 47 administrators compared to Methacton's 27. But you have to look at the components of that number of 47. I know there's a turf manager in there. I know there's a payroll person in there. I know there's a payroll benefits person in that 47 number. You know, so you have to look at the structure of the 47 compared to the structure of Methacton's 27. Maybe Methacton only takes certified positions in their MAO, I don't know. But you have to look at the components when you're making that comparison between the districts. I heard Mr. Roth ask a question. Did the Fidavia agreement go through the Buildings and Grounds Committee? I don't know what the answer was. I didn't hear a yes or no, if it went through the committee or not.
The original Fidavia agreement did. but this is almost like a...
Yeah, the $34,000 one, you asked if that went through committee.
Right, and that one did not go through committee, so this was a recommendation from the administration.
That just
to
came
correct
out
that.
now.
Right.
See, that's why I think the work sessions are a good idea, you know, that you have that, so you can discuss all these items. My questions for last month were posted to the website, I guess, between Tuesday night and tonight. So I asked some questions about legal services for solicitor and special ed services. The 14-15 year-to-date costs are $290,000. I assume that's just the general fund year-to-date and not the turf project expenses?
That's correct.
So 290,000 is the general fund expenditure, so there's additional solicitor services located in the construction fund. I see the 15-16 budget is 275,000.
And John, I need you to start to wrap up.
Yeah, I know. My wife got an email, said they made pistachio ice cream and they close at 10:30 at one of the local establishments, so we have to get there.
And you're over your 3 minutes, so that's the...
Can I take my wife's 3 minutes?
Yeah, okay. She wants to give it to you.
All right. I also asked a question about the increases to the salary increases as a percentage basis and $1 for administrators, teachers, secretaries, and custodial and maintenance. The administration, I got an answer of the MO agreement expires June 30, 2015, so I don't know the percentage increase or the dollars for that new agreement. That could have been discussed at HR committee if it would have went through there. The teachers are getting a 1.94% raise, or $622,000. The secretaries are getting a 2% raise at $73,088, and the Teamsters are getting a 2.4% raise at $71,134. So I'd just like to read those answers. Thank you.
Katie Donnelly, Audubon. I just had a question. I know somebody earlier asked, and I know it's on the website, about what happened to the word alternatives. And I know on the website for the questions, it says that it was originally on there at the presentation by the superintendent, and why the name of the committee now has it, missing. It's absent in the title. And that the motion approved by the board was to seek additional information regarding the possible closure of Audubon Elementary School. The unfortunate choice of words in the presented title not only conflicted with the direction of the board, but has caused confusion. And we hope additional information can clarify this. Can we get clarification what, other than alternative things than closing Audubon? I mean, we were all there, and I thought everybody agreed, and I was just curious what that.
Yeah, and it's nothing more than the fact that that was the motion, but each of the committees have what's called a profile, meaning what their responsibilities will be if they so choose to apply for the committees and are selected to be on the committees, and then for the committees to use those profiles as their job description for the work, the volunteer work. In that job description, it does specifically say that gathering any additional, I'm going to paraphrase this, gathering any additional information so directed by the superintendent. So each of the committees can look at other things other than what's listed in each of the profiles. There were specific things listed in for example, enrollment, capacity, and education to address. The first one they addressed the outstanding questions for enrollment. The next thing they're going to do is address the outstanding questions for capacity. And if it gets to the point where we need to have that committee address alternatives, or one of the other committees to address other alternatives, we can do that. Or if the board chooses to direct me to move that forward sooner, we can certainly do that as well. It doesn't mean that it can't happen, that it won't happen.
I just hope you guys can see from the public view how that looks. I mean, that was one of the things, and it just seems like there's one street road, and it's closed Audubon, and that was pretty clear on Tuesday with a lot of the information that went down. And it's just concerning, and that something like that was voted on, that we all heard publicly, and then it's, suddenly gone. I hope that is open, whatever. I will say, a few board meetings ago, Ms. Gorla was here, and all the pillars and the character stuff and all that stuff. My son got the trustworthiness, and then he watched that board meeting the other night. And he has to look at all of you guys. And he didn't understand that. He didn't understand how this stuff could happen. And this is why, we're supposed to go and show and tell our kids to do what we do. And they looked at that board meeting, and it was really it was really upsetting to me for him to see this is, trustworthiness. That's something important to him. He got that pillar, and I just hope you guys, you're really affecting these kids.
Any additional public comment? Okay, Candy.
Candy Alaba, Eagleville. I have something I would like to say. I've heard a couple people mention tonight and ask the board if they have any children in the school district. I have no children in the school district. Both my children did 13 years apiece in the school district, 26 years. Now, I guess since I have no children in the school district, I am not allowed to have an opinion about the closing of the schools. And I found that out in March when I didn't follow the narrative and I went against what everybody in the room was saying. The people who have no children in the school district have just as much say in what happens here. And the discussion of enrollment was, if I remember correctly, and I get a little scattered, maybe 4 years ago when Dr. Quinn was here, was brought up at a finance committee meeting at the possibility of somewhere in the near future we're going to have to close a school. This has been a problem that has been looming in the background. And because I have no children in the school district, I guess I have no say. I'm not sure at the time, but I remember back maybe my daughter's 30, 20 years ago, it was brought up about redistricting. That was the dirtiest word in this school district. The parents went nuts when you said redistrict. And my problem was my daughter fell in between two schools on Nickelville Road, between Woodland and Arrowhead. And somebody thought it'd be a great idea to bus her to each school when she was maybe a half a minute from Nickelville. The only reason she wasn't redistricted because between Arcola Road and Ridge Pike, there was no other child on Nickelville Road. And the superintendent at the time, I'm not sure, maybe Mrs. Kernop remembers, Dr. Flanagan? Does that sound familiar?
He was pupil services.
Pupil service, that's who I spoke with. I spoke with him about it. And he was very helpful. He looked into it and he said, Mrs. Alaba, it would be a waste of money to send a bus all the way down the road to pick up your daughter. And she did her last year at Eagleville in 5th grade. Then a number of years later, they brought up redistricting again. They kind of floated it. And the parents came out and went crazy. Now I hear redistricting again. Now you have 7 options to look at. Not that I'm patting myself on the back. One of the options was mine, option 6. And when I look at the options, at this point, until anybody can prove me wrong, that is the best option. There's not going to be people that like it. But because I have no children in the school district does not mean that I don't have a say. And to be told that the people in the audience who are at least 30 years younger than me have paid for my children is bogus. I'm paying for their children. And if they did help pay for my children, thank you, I appreciate it. They got a very good education here. They went on to college, got degrees, one's a teacher. So I'm going to, from this point on, I am going to voice my opinion. I am not going to jump on a bandwagon and run with everybody else. And if no one does, if you don't like my opinion, that's fine. I don't have to agree with the crowd. They don't have to agree with me. But I do, so far, what's still in this country, I do have the right to my own opinion. I may not agree with this board all the time. 99%, I haven't agreed with you. But I have been sitting back for 4 years and watching the road this school district's been traveling when it comes to enrollment. And there's a lot of reasons people have left this school district. And one of the biggest reasons is the 2 pharmaceutical companies. When those people left, they took their children with them. And no one had a plan B in this school district, what to do when this happened. We can't change that. This is 2015. All we can do is pray the economy gets better. There's a lot of people in the school district that are praying the economy gets better. People are still losing their homes. In the month of June, 7 homes went up for sheriff's sale in this school district. 4 in Lower Providence, 3 in Worcester. This is not changing. It's becoming a trend. I don't like to see school closes. I grew up in Norristown. I watched 5 elementary schools close, and they had to turn around and build them. But sometimes you have to suck it up and just do what's best for everyone, not just for the children that are involved, all the children in the school district. This board has to look out for everyone's child, not just the ones in Audubon and Arrowhead, the ones in Woodland, Eagleville, and Worcester. And Skyview. I keep forgetting Skyview's there. But, I mean, it's great. You're passionate. This time last year, there was 4 people sitting in this room when you voted on the budget. This time last year, there was 4 people sitting here. In January, there was 4 people sitting here. But it took them to say to close the school for you people to come out. And you can get all upset and don't like what I have to say, but is that what it took to get people to come out? Is to threaten? And it's not a threat, but if, you know, and please, if anybody's watching this, don't call my house. Don't call my house and threaten me. Because this time, I will take it a step further.
All right, Candy. Thank you.
Thank you.
You've already had multiple times. Anyone else have public comment? You've already had 6 minutes up there. What's the question?
More than one.
And then I'm going to ask for a motion to adjourn, so this will be it.
I wasn't aware that the MAO group got a contribution to 403B. How much is that? Is it a percentage of salary? How much is it?
3%.
3%. All right, thank you. And the other comment I want to make is I probably wouldn't be here if the school bus drivers wouldn't have been outsourced last year. But I don't want to say I wouldn't be here because of the bus drivers being outsourced. I wouldn't be here if it wasn't for the methodology behind that. I think that's what got me here, okay? That special board meeting of May 6th, okay? And all the last minute behind the door scenes of suppressing the drivers from them getting the word out that they're going to be working for First Student and not the district. I think that's what got me out, not the fact that they were outsourced, okay? And one comment I want to make, if the public is watching, I want them to come to committee meetings. I want more people to come to the board meetings because you can connect the dots. You can put things together and you could be vigilant as taxpayers in the district. Okay? That's what I want to see happen.
Do I have a motion to adjourn? Mr. McFarland, is there a second? Mr. Roth, all those in favor?
Aye.
We stand adjourned.